Interesting. Oh, I know what's going on. And of course, I renamed a hard drive, so something else is messed up. All right. Think I'm on the YouTubes. Should probably check, see. So I'm not here talking to myself. If I am on YouTube, welcome. I'm Sean from How to RPG and Gaming and BS. And I get on here on Saturdays to talk about role-playing games and the industry and commentary, and more importantly, to interact with the community in the chat. So thanks for joining. Yeah, looks like it's working, sweet. I'm on a tear. I have a couple hiccups here and there, but it's not something I haven't noticed. So unlike in the past where it was kind of par for the course, I'm slowly putting some of those technology snafus behind me. So hope everybody is doing well on this fine Saturday. Nubis, good to see you. So, all right. I'll put this over here, put this over there. All right. Hope the holiday season's treating you well. Hope it's not driving you too insane. I don't know if there's anything that you look forward to during the holiday season. Some folks, though rare, are very big holiday season people. They love it. They love the snow. They live in one of those climates. They love the festivities. They love getting together with family. I think all of us have an appreciation for it to some degree, right? I guess that's just what level of appreciation. Once in a while, I run into the person just loves this time of year. Me personally, it's nice because I think things wind down here in the U.S. a little bit. People are taking time off. Businesses don't seem to be running 1,000 miles an hour because they'll wait till after the new year to do that. What's up, Joe? Good to see you in the chat and Discord at the same time. So for those of you that have not ever tuned into this, I see people bopping in and out of the Discord stage. They probably get notified, look and see what it is, and then they bounce, which is fine. I get on Saturday mornings to talk about RPG stuff. Today is going to be interesting because it's more about the industry, and one would say that it's not even about RPGs, but nonetheless, it does affect the RPG hobby, I think, to some degree, because it's been quite an impressive platform to really, really, really benefit our hobby, and that's Kickstarter. So let's get started, shall we? The first thing that I want to talk about is if you're not aware, TSR, I'm going to sneeze here. I got a sneeze coming on. Pardon me. Usually comes in pairs. I think this is a single one. TSR 3, as they are affectionately known in the Twitterverse and online. And and for those that are really not in the know and are like, what? TSR? Whoa, huh? I'm not going to go into the whole debacle that is current TSR Inc., LLC, whatever. Let's just say that, in my humble opinion, they've got a bit of a patent troll smell to them. And they, through some social media snafus, have been kind of run off into a corner. They are affiliated with the Dungeon Museum in Lake Geneva. They've created TSR. They're under getting a product called Giant Lands, I think, trying to get off the ground. But there was some things that they, Ernie Gygax is a part of it. And I think the other person's name is Lanza. He ran for political office at one point, but nonetheless, they created this company. So somebody could say, well, how does one even get TSR? I thought that was owned by Wizards of the Coast and blah, 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 blah. So the short answer is I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a professionally qualified to give any type of legal advice. There's the disclaimer up front and center. But there are times when something, if it's not used, you can, say, hey, it's not being used anymore and I want to pick it up. Which is perfectly acceptable under certain conditions. TSR was originally incorporated, obviously way back, but the second TSR, or why it's TSR3 we're talking about, but TSR2, people are like, well, who's that? That was Jason Elliott. So I know that for a fact. I know Jason. And Jason was responsible for putting that together and was involved with Gygax magazine. And most recently with the TSR piece, he had that company name and put out Top Secret, New World Order. And with Mr. Rasmussen, which was the original author behind TSR back in literally the original TSR OG days. And it's still out there. They have rebranded because of all this other snafu from TSR. So what happened was that the trademark or the TSR piece came up for renewal, and Jason let it lapse. And so these guys swooped in and grabbed it. But they were willing to work with Jason because they were, I guess, trying to be and play nice with him, given the TSR Top Secret New World Order that was associated with Jason's TSR company. So they said, hey man, we don't want to make it really hard for you. So we'll just license you the ability to use the TSR piece. After some snafus with TSR3, Jason rebranded. I think it's like Solara is the name. Solara RPG, if I'm not mistaken, or yeah, I think that's what it is. Don't quote me on that, even though I'm quoted. Hey, Christian, good to see you. And so Jason's like, hey, let those guys do their thing. Socially, how do I put this? Jason's more, I would say, progressive in his worldviews, and it didn't align with TSR3s and some of the things that they had said online. So he wanted to remove himself from any association with those guys. And so he rebranded, and he's still out there. I got an email recently about, hey, I must be on their email list that said, hey, Top Secret New World Order, get it for your holiday gift giving season, grab a copy. So they're still going under that new entity. And TSR3 kind of got off Twitter because they were getting, pretty. So, speed up, fast forward. Ernie was on a YouTube video where he's interviewed, said some things. All hell broke loose. If you're wondering, well, what things, Sean? Just go and Google it, find it, watch it, whatever. Twitter went on fire about it, and then TSR3 has been relatively laying low. They actually, I think they changed the name to Wonder Bread or something. I can't remember. Wonderland. I don't even know. So there was talks of them changing again. There was originally some information on their website about relaunching Star Frontiers and garnering obtaining rights to the logo and the IP behind Star Frontiers. they kept thinking that Wizards of the Coast was this huge entity that was against them, and that Wizards of the Coast is preventing them from existing and pursuing their business venture to some degree, whether they were, I don't know what that's all about, because everybody was like, well, what are they doing? Like, it just seems so far-fetched because a company of two people, let's face it, Wizards has a lot of things going on, and they have to kind of pick and choose what they're having to do on a day-to-day basis, and going after two people in, I don't know, if one's based in Wisconsin and one's based in North Carolina, they just got better things to do than mess around with frivolous nonsense. My interpretation. There you go. Well, they recently popped up, and one of the things that they did was, geez, I tell you. So here's Eric Tankar. Eric's been around for quite some time. He's a blogger that is really, he's worked. I don't know if he's officially worked or been an employee of Frog God Games. I know he's been at their booth before. He's worked on Swords and Wizardry. And he digs around a little bit. He's looked at Kickstarters and people that have flaked on Kickstarters and kept track of them. Ken Whitman is one of them. Ken has had multiple Kickstarters, never come to fruition. And Tankar has dug a little bit on and kept track of that and puts things out there for people to read and kind of gain from themselves. Now, the only reason I bring up Eric's website and blog because he did a little, work that I probably don't have to do. So he brought up the actual complaint. So my understanding is the original, where this originated was that an Indiegogo campaign had started about all this. So they TSR came on Indiegogo for crowdfunding to say, hey, we're crowdfunding our legal expenses, kind of thing. Like, this is the deal. We're filing a complaint against Wizards of the Coast. Well, why don't I just show it to you if you haven't seen it? So the one thing, of course, with Twitter, right? Okay. The great thing about Twitter is it moves very quickly. You can find certain things that are occurring in real time. I could find out what my colleagues may be drinking for breakfast, for coffee, I don't know, to, actors dying and passing, and presidents, going on tirades. So the thing about Twitter is everybody was going around saying that TSR was going after Wizards of the Coast in an effort to lay some claims about, rights to trademarks and things of that nature. And in also a part of that was they were suing Wizards to remove the disclaimers that were put on legacy product. Okay, so if you're not aware of what that is, Oriental Adventures, published way back in the 80s, right? I think it was it at the published time, or was it the early 90s? Oriental, does it even matter, Sean? I don't know, but it was a long time ago, and 1985. I saw it, 1985. And obviously, some of these older products did not age well, okay? Some of you may say, I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't understand what everybody's getting up in a fuss. Not here to debate that. Regardless, the fact of the matter is, Wizards of the Coast decided to take some of the older product from what they acquired from when they purchased TSR and put it out on DM's Guild and DriveThruRPG. In so doing, in an effort to be, hey, some of this stuff didn't age very well, they put disclaimers on there, right? So let me see if I can even see if we could pull it up and understand what that actually means and actually says, because one of the things that is a little disconcerting with Twitter is that people look at a tweet, establish it as fact, retweet it, and then get up in a tizzy over a 240 character tweet from somebody they don't even know, and without even reading the facts or looking at the sources and doing their own research. Sometimes Twitter is guilty. I'm guilty. But sometimes Twitter is such a shortcut to thinking. Like, it's just, I don't want to do all the effort. I don't want to find the facts. I don't want to, establish a basis, because I don't have time for that shit. Just read Victor's tweet. Victor is a good guy. I know Victor. He's not going to make this shit up. And frankly, he probably won't. But the problem is, Victor might have tweeted something from somebody else that may not be completely upfront, or maybe hadn't done all their homework. So this little thing that I'm doing right now, hopefully will enlighten some people to better understanding what the hell is going on, so that they don't further propagate some of the things that may or may not be true. Okay. So that's the goal here, is just to say, hey, and when people go, well, that's, this is what they're doing. And you're like, well, no, hold on now a second. That's not necessarily true. All right. So, all right, here we go. So this is the big disclaimer right here. Bold print. If you're on Discord, you're not seeing it, but on YouTube here, it states, and I'll read it out. We Wizards recognize that some of the legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of Dungeons & Dragons franchise today. That is their way of saying, hey, it was done a long time ago. There's some things in it we don't agree with today, but it's still our product. And hey, continues. Some older content may reflect ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice that were commonplace in American society at that time. These depictions were wrong then and are wrong today. This content is presented as it was originally created, because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. That is their way of saying, yes, we can completely erase this from history, but we don't feel that's the way to get over and past the negatives of history. Like, we're not learning anything from history if it's kind of erased. And I kind of, so this stuff gets a lot of, you want to get things going on Twitter, just kind of tinker around with this and put it out on your stream. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. Okay. Everybody has an opinion about this stuff, right? Because I'll tell you what, even with Wizards thinking and putting this out there and saying, hey, these are our view. This is kind of the deal. This is where we stand on all this stuff. There are people that are very, very, very much this stuff needs to go. It needs to go. It needs to be erased and away, and we shouldn't put it out, and you shouldn't be profiting off of it. So there's all kinds of arguments. There's a lot to digest on some of this stuff. Hey, Brett. Hey, Victor. So, somebody will argue, well, they should put it out as for prosperity, and so we could learn from our past, but there maybe shouldn't be a profit made. So they shouldn't be making any money off it, right? Because this is Oriental Ventures. It costs $5 for a PDF. Somebody would say, if they're going to sell it, they should probably take that $5 or whatever the profit is and donate it to a worthy cause that fights some of these injustices. Okay. Somebody would say, I don't understand what the problem is. I think it's a fine product. It should be out there. And not only should it be out there, it shouldn't have this disclaimer on there. Okay. Mileage may vary. I'm not here to dispute somebody's opinion on what should be done and how this should be handled. It's Wizards property. This is how they decided to handle this. Okay. Sean, why are you doing this? We'll get to this. I promise you. All right. And for those of you that know where this is going to go, hang on for the ride. Okay. So these depictions were wrong and are wrong today. Okay. This content is presented as it was originally created because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Just mention that. So they continue. Dungeons and Dragons teaches that diversity is a strength, and we strive to make our D&D products as welcoming and inclusive as possible. This part of our work will never end. Okay. I wanted you to read that because this disclaimer is found throughout some of the older products that are available on DM's Guild. Okay, great. So where does this go from here? In the Indiegogo that TSR has put up, one of the things that it states is that it says right here, TSR in their Indiegogo will also fight to have the WotC legacy disclaimer removed. Okay, talking specifically to the disclaimer I just read to you. They continue, so it continues. So I'll read this for you. TSR is suing WotC over trademark declaratory judgment of ownership. Okay, that's what the suit is about, right? Okay, we can get to that. I'm going to go into a better explanation of all this in just a second. TSR will also pursue in the near future having WotC. Okay, it says will also pursue in the near future having WotC remove the legacy content disclaimer placed on TSR-based D&D and other products, and retractions of any other libel and slander which alleges that racism and other heinous beliefs are incorporated into those products. Okay. The reason I emphasize TSR will also pursue in the near future is because people on Twitter are saying, oh, they're suing Wizards for trademark and they're suing them to remove the disclaimer on the legacy content. They are not. Okay, that's important. It's kind of irking the shit out of me because people are like, oh my God, they're trying to remove this disclaimer. But they're not in the suit. In the suit, they are not. The Indiegogo, yes, they are like, hey, as part of the Indiegogo, we need some support because we're suing them, and this is what the suit is. And down the road, we're probably going to use the funds, I'm guessing, to go after this disclaimer. All right, so that's one thing we should all be clear about. I'm not defending this, okay? Everybody should know that. I know there's going to be some knucklehead that's going to come and watch this and they're going to be like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's defending TSR. No, I'm not. Okay. All right. So here we go. Continuing. And the reason they say they want to remove the disclaimer specifically, the disclaimer attempts to make a statement of fact argument and therefore paints all of the writers, editors, artists, and consumers of those products as supporting those alleged prejudices, stereotypes, and bigotry wrongfully claimed to the part of those products. This statement of Wizards of the Coast opens the possibility for the producers and players of these legacy products to face ridicule and face the labeling as bigots, racist, misogynists, and worse, cyber and physical attacks. Okay, so what that's basically saying is we want the disclaimer removed because we're getting flack for it. We're getting flack because we play them, and we're getting flack because we own them. We're getting flack because we run those games, and we're getting flack because the authors and artists that were part of those products are facing ridicule and judgment and cyber and physical attacks. Now, I would be interested to know, because I haven't heard anybody who's worked on any of those products come forth and say, leave me alone, stop beating me up. It was a long time ago. Okay. And those that are out there, which is not this audience, that are doing that need to kind of like wake up and say, hey, look, it was a different time. People did, it's not an excuse, but it just was. It's the past. They can't undo the work that they did in any capacity It's not their work to do anything with anymore. We need to move forward and just be better, okay? So they post the legal content disclaimer, blah. All right. The way this came across my radar was TSR was up, they're trying to raise money and they're had Indiegogo going on. And then it was like they're trying to get trademarks that Wizard owns that they say they should own. And they're trying to get the disclaimer, okay? And so there was some mud because it wasn't clear on what they were actually suing Wizards of the Coast for. People just lumped these two things together. And Mr. Kammer on Twitter, personal friend of mine, legal counsel, looked at the complaint and said, no, there's no mention of removing the content disclaimer in the filing, okay? And if they were to put that on Indiegogo and say, hey, we're suing Wizards of the Coast, here we're suing them for the trademark thing, and we're suing for the legacy content disclaimer to be removed, and they put that into the Indiegogo and say, hey, you need to give us some money, right? We want you to give us some money as we pursue these two things. Well, that's fraud. That, again, not legal. But if they're saying, hey, this is why we want your money, so we could do this, but one of those things they're not going to do, that would be bad. So the way they have the Indiegogo saying, look, we've got this judgment that we're filing against Wizards, and then we have the other thing that we're eventually going to pursue, okay? That's context. So everybody's kind of in the know a little bit better. Hey, knowledge is power, people. Let's learn a little bit today, shall we? Cancel Sean. Christian Serrano. Victor says, we want to sue WotC for something, but we need to fire everyone up. So how can we best do that? Possibly. Could be a tactic for sure. It's an explanation, not an excuse for sure. Wayne, good to see you. Victor says, I'm slightly amused by this comedy routine. Oh, man. These guys, me, both, probably, maybe them, hopefully, I don't know. It is, it's like the Benny Hill song rings in my head every time I hear TSR. It's Yakety Sax, by the way. That's the name of the song. All right. So, here's the scary thing, ladies and gentlemen. There's 64 people out there that have given them $2,000 total on this Indiegogo. There's 57 days left. They're trying to raise 50 grand. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. If you know the movie reference. All right. Now, I'm going to switch over because, again, so Eric Tankar from Tankar's Tavern puts the filing on his site. Exhibit A, link to Exhibit A, which is looks like a letter, specifically an email from legal counsel. I'm not going to read through all that. And then it has a link to Indiegogo. Some of his own, hey, this is kind of walking through what he has found, what these pieces of things that he's put in his blog, relate to and things of that nature. And if you want to go and check it out, by all means. I'm not going to go through Eric's site to go through each one of these pieces because I think I found something that is not only, I thought, fairly entertaining, but very educational. And I'll bring that up right now. So this gentleman I tripped across his Twitter profile is Akiva Cohen, Akiva M. Cohen. And Akiva, it appears to be his byline on Twitter, says, father of five, commercial litigator, which is probably what we're doing, looking at Akiva's profile here. He is just this. Twitter's second most popular litigation disaster tour guide. Far centrist fighting the widening gyre. And I retweeted this because his thread is fantastic. It really is. And he starts it out with this. Hey, litigation disaster tourists. My trials are done or settled, and I'm back to a much more normal schedule, which means we have some time to live read the TSR versus Wizards of the Coast LOL suit today. We'll have to break this thread to get little girl up and to school, but here we go. All right. This is fantastic, I gotta say. Indiegogo collects some money immediately. I think so. And I don't know if it necessarily, I think they need to collect right away or they don't, but it doesn't matter if it funds. I don't remember, I think. Victor says it depends on how the creator set up the project on Indiegogo. It can be upfront or at the end of the project deadline. Okay. I think the difference between Kickstarter and Indiegogo is if Kickstarter doesn't fund, they don't take your money. If Indiegogo doesn't fund, I think they can still take the money. I'm not sure. And I don't know how TSR set it up. I will put, I hate to give these guys any more air than what they're worth, but you know, whatever. Sometimes, you know, it just makes for good YouTube. All right, let's get to Akiva. So let's start here. They filed the case in the Eastern District of North. This is hilarious. Oh God. And man, you know, none of us know this stuff, right? Let's start here. They filed the case in the Eastern District of North Carolina. This is an interesting choice, given that Wizards is headquartered in Washington and registered as an LLC in Delaware, for a value of interesting that incorporates clownishly ignorant. As you all remember from such prior hits as you can't sue the governor of Wisconsin there, and no, Mr. Biss, that's the wrong state, this is not so much a thing. And he puts memes through here. It's freaking hilarious. I gotta say, Akiva's awesome. To recap, there's a concept in the law called personal jurisdiction, which, well, makes a whole lot of sense. Generally speaking, it says you can't be hauled into court that doesn't have legal basis to have authority over you. And he goes into examples, which is awesome. So if you live in Indiana, I can't just file a lawsuit against you in New York and force you to come defend yourself here, generally. Okay, generally. There's always some exceptions, right? Of course, that's a problem if you're doing things that harm me in New York. So states haven't enacted long-arm statutes to fix that issue. Okay, he goes into some of the details and he's like, basically in a nutshell, to kind of to sum it up, it's like they filed the suit in North Carolina. This TSR has offices in Wisconsin and North Carolina. Wizards is in Washington and Delaware. Like, how does the person filing the suit, you got to file, you're supposed to file in the correct state. And then he puts in more examples, like if you get in an accident, you're an Indiana driver and you drive to New York and you get into a car accident there, how is that different? The reason he points out some of the details is because I think he goes into it later, is that the person that's representing TSR is probably a little more well-versed in like insurance. And with insurance, the state where you file the state is not as restrictive, right? Because of that specific component, right? I'm Sean, I drive to New York, I get into a car accident. Insurance companies have to be able to work cross state lines in those instances, right? For example, he says the New York victim doesn't have to go to Indiana to sue. The case arises out of a New York-based tort, so it's fair to sue you in New York. Okay. He even mentions, I'm not going to go into a lot of stuff. Anyways, suing corporations are pretty simple. You can sue them where their conduct occurred. or simplifying, caused harm under a long-arm statute. You could sue them where they're incorporated, and you could sue them where they're headquartered. Okay. So he's just going through like, there's so many things wrong with this whole thing, right? So back to the highlighted image. TSR is suing in North Carolina. That's North Carolina. That's not where WotC is incorporated or located. And they're suing for a declaratory judgment of ownership. So they're not alleging they were harmed by anything WotC did. So, oh boy. All right. And one of the things in the actual, I think, document states is like, well, Wizards has an office in North Carolina, so there you go. Well, that doesn't mean anything because companies have sales, quote unquote, sales offices everywhere. So, Akiva points that out. Now, he doesn't say that specifically, but he's like, just because a company has an office in the state doesn't hold the water to the legal pieces of this. So why somebody that's representing TSR who's an attorney wouldn't know that, I have no idea. But regardless, Vornak, good to see you, man. Is clownishly ignorant illegal standard, something like that. They misspelled district in the title. Yeah, I would not be surprised at all. They did. You're right. That's funny. Nobody caught it. Nice catch. All right. So this court to TSR, if WotC asks for the case to be dismissed as filed in the wrong court. All right. Also, let's unpack that declaratory judgment thing. Most lawsuits are about things that people did to you or are doing that cause harm. Again, Sean is not a legal attorney. He's just reciting one. So you want either money to pay you for the harm that already happened or an injunction to stop it or both. Okay? But sometimes two parties have a live legal dispute about what their legal rights are. Say two farmers both claim the same strip of land, they can actually go to court and ask for a ruling. They want the court to declare who is right and who is wrong. Here, TSR is saying, and we'll get there, WotC claims WotC claims it owns the trademarks in various old D&D logos. We think we can prove we do. Tell us we're right and they're wrong. So they're not alleging any harm, just asking for a declaration of rights. All right? The more you know. The more you know. Anyway, we haven't gotten past the preliminary paragraph, not even to the first allegation, and this case is fucked already. Impressive. Let's see who pulled this feat off. Akiva's awesome, I gotta say. Go follow him on Twitter if you want. It's at Akiva M. Cohen, Cohen. Okay, interestingly enough, this firm appears to have an actual functioning IP practice, by which I mean that it has a lawyer who appears competent to handle patent work, and this is critical. Didn't copy the text of its firm's IP practice page from an encyclopedia, which is interesting. Let's see. Okay. So he goes into who Justin Humphreys is, who's their TSR's legal attorney, representing attorney. In contrast, is primarily an insurance litigator, which makes it highly likely he hasn't spent much time worrying about personal jurisdiction. In his cases, you're always going to have personal jurisdiction in your home state over the company that insured you. Okay, that's where I was talking about personal jurisdiction. So that's probably why Mr. Humphreys is filing it the way he's doing it, is because he's probably always done it that way. Fast forward. All right. Let's see what this case is about. Screen capture says this is a trademark and copyright dispute, seeking declarations of the ownership of certain trademark rights and copyrights in certain letters, words, and images. Number 3, TSR LLC, a limited liability company authorized to operate in Wisconsin and North Carolina, has applied to register the letters, words, and images in the marks at issue as trademarks with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So I mentioned this on Twitter that TSR appears to be what I would interpret patent trolls that can't even do patent trolling very well. Victor says there's a direct message over on Discord with a link on how Indiegogo campaigns work. Partway down, it explains funding methods. So if you want to go to our Discord at gamingnbs.com/Discord and find out more about that, thank you, Victor, or whoever posted that. Appreciate it. You could read about how the Indiegogo is set up. So the question is whether Wizards has it set up to, hey, Sean wants to put money in, they automatically get it, or it's taken at the end of the campaign. That's what that is in reference to. I see. Victor mentioned also, if you look at the Indiegogo page, their money goal is, you will see it. It says flexible goal. That's the one where they can take the money no matter how the campaign plays out. Okay, that makes sense. I knew Indiegogo had that, or did. I don't know. So thank you for confirming. Next thing on this nature of the case. TSR Incorporated was a Wisconsin corporation that owned the rights to a number of trademarks. And then lastly, or in this screenshot anyway, upon confirmation and belief, TSR Incorporated sold their assets to defendant in or around 1997. So the defendant in this case is Wizards, right? And as Akiva says, okay, a lot going on here. First, they're apparently seeking a DJ on both trademark and copyright in certain letters, words, and images. And I can't even begin to tell you what a bad idea that is. Most fundamentally, it ups the stakes enormously. The prevailing party in a copyright DJ action can be awarded its attorney's fees. They misspelled judgment on this page. Oh, did they really? Did I read right over it and not even know it? Oh, man. There's one that's spelled right. Anyways, it does not surprise me. Okay, continuing on here. So this is important. Like, copyright DJ actually could be awarded its attorney's fees. Like, that would be rich, right? TSR wages a lawsuit to Wizards. And in so doing, they say, hey, if we lose, you're going to pay our attorney fees anyway. Now, I don't think that's the case, but regardless, that's the big thing about our awesome legal system, right? I mean, the U.S. has seen where you got a lot of money, you throw a lot of lawyers at it, it could bury a person that doesn't have a lot of money that can't pay a lot of legal fees, right? So it's a very unfortunate thing. And some of us have probably witnessed some cases in the media where that's probably taken, or been quite obvious. So I'll just say that. So TSR has taken, this is where he goes. So TSR has taken we're filing a shaky suit in the wrong court using a small NC firm and layered it onto it, and we'd like to pay your attorneys for you. Second, you can't copyright words or letters, so they must be talking about images. But the images in question, per their own intro, were 1, created by an entirely different company, TSR Incorporated, and 2, sold along with the copyrights in them to WotC in 1997. Good God, what the hell are you doing? I understand that their general theory on the trademarks is that WotC lost the rights by stopping use of the marks and the new TSR can therefore pick them up, which is potentially a thing. But that's not how copyright works at all. The court can't just declare you a third party who had no part in creating the copyrighted works the owner of the copyright, which makes complete sense, right? Copyright lapses. Oh, I'm Sean. I'm gonna go grab it. It's mine. I lay claim to it. It's mine. Like what kind of world are we living in here? So even if you're the original artist and TSR LLC, the newly formed entity suing, is not that, you can't recapture a copyright you sold to a third party just because they haven't been using it. Right? So if Wizards owns it, bought it from TSR, but they haven't been using it, you can't just go, well, Wizards isn't using it anymore, and I guess I can. Or not even use it, but like claim ownership. Like what the hell? So Akiva, thanks Akiva. Now, to be frank, I haven't read the rest of the complaint yet, so maybe there was some contractual reversion provision that covers this. No chance, but who knows? That would make this claim not crazy, but barring that, wow. Oh man, I was just dying reading this stuff. Yeah, it's legal, but Akiva puts some good humor into it. So this is, in theory, not a crazy argument dependent on the facts. So it's not too far-fetched here, he says. Time for a mini trademark law class. Yay! Some of you might be... But nonetheless. So he puts a screenshot in there and highlights. Only 2 assignments of trademark registrations related to the marks at issue were ever recorded in favor of defendant. Defendant did not maintain or apply for trademark registrations for any of the marks at issue after allegedly acquiring ownership. Rather, TSR Incorporated had already abandoned some of these registrations, and defendant abandoned the 2 registrations for which assignments were recorded, naming defendant as assignee. So I think in that statement, it's like, hey, TSR abandoned them. Original TSR abandoned them. WotC bought them. They didn't do anything with them. So it's gone, hey. So upon information and belief, defendant stopped manufacturing and selling a number of products previously sold and distributed through TSR. Despite not maintaining the registrations for the marks at issue or putting them into use in interstate commerce, defendant has continued to assert ownership of the marks. Yeah, because they do own them. Like, I don't think there's a dispute on who owns them. Maybe? Okay, so he goes, let's talk to Akiva. I need more coffee for this. Yeah, buckle up, cowboys. Get your cowgirls. Get your coffee and soda. Hey-o. Victor says it takes 75 years for copyright to expire if it is not renewed. That length of time is called the Mickey Mouse extension from the original. Guess who thought that extension needed added to copyright? Yeah, thanks, Disney. What all that means is there's no use needed for copyright to work. All right, so Akiva continues. Trademarks exist to protect customers. This is interesting and it makes sense, but we probably don't see it that way. Which, if you go on Twitter, I'm guessing 90% of the people don't understand this. Trademarks exist to protect customers. Think about it, okay? Not companies, right? People are thinking, well, I'm going to trademark that, right? Because it's going to protect us. Nobody can steal it. And if they steal it or we could sue them. Trademark rights are about making sure consumers know that when they are buying a Coke, it's a product coming from Coca-Cola Company with whatever attendant quality information that knowledge conveys. It's like certifying the thing, right? Like, hey, it's a Coke because it's trademarked and we own that. Therefore, we have our own Coke stamp of approval. And if it says Coke, it's our company. And if it's not, then it's imitation and we need to sue it. And that imitation might, it doesn't go through our QA process and it might kill you. Trademark is brand integrity. Absolutely plays into it. you have expectations, good or bad, for Hershey, for example, for Hershey's products. Therefore, we don't want someone marketing Hershey's chocolates and confusing a whole bunch of people into buying their products because they thought they were Hershey's. So what that means that trademarks only have validity as long as they have some level of consumer identification between product with that mark and company that makes the product. This is interesting because he's going to mention something that's similar to Kleenex. Kleenex, right? Trademark. But here he goes. This is cool. And maybe everybody on Twitter knows this but me. Maybe I'm that 90% that didn't know. Like, it makes sense to me. Not sure I was well informed. Okay. I am now. Thanks, Akiva. He says, you're probably most familiar with that concept in the context of genericide. Trademarks that lose protectability when they stop being the name of a particular product and start being the name of a product category. Hey, can you give me a Kleenex? Sure. It's Puffs, right? It's Puffs tissue, right? We know what a Kleenex is, though. Like Frisbee, he says, and Thermos, and dry ice. Thermos. We say thermos. Yeah, I gotta grab my thermos, right? Hey, let's go play Frisbee. It's probably not a actual Frisbee proper trademark item, but it's morphed into that, right? All right. Yeah, Victor. Kleenex versus facial tissues, right? So, thanks for doing this guy says, thanks for doing this. I'm not an IP guy. All right. So he says, all of those were once trademarks for flying discs, vacuum insulated flasks, and solid carbon dioxide until they became so synonymous with the product that they stopped identifying a particular manufacturer. That's why you get silly things like this. And it says, don't say Velcro. There's a video that says, don't say Velcro. Our Velcro brand company's legal team decided to clear a few things about using the Velcro trademark. Interesting. I didn't watch a video. Anyways, you can check it out. It's on YouTube. I'll put a link to Akiva's profile and everything down below. And if you find this amusing, don't forget to hit the like, smash that like button, damn it. Subscribe. Akiva continues. So if a company registers a trademark, say Santa Flush, and then stops making the product and lets the trademark registration expire, and customers no longer associate that name with the manufacturer, someone else can launch a new product with that name. That's essentially what TSR, he says he'll just call him new TSR from now on, is arguing. That TSR, old, sold a bunch of marks to Wizards, but Wizards stopped using them. And nobody connects them to Wizards. And now new TSR wants to use them, and Wizards is threatening to sue. Really? He goes through like bullets 10 through 12, bullets 10 through 13 of the judgment here. Not judgment, the filing. Defendants' assertions that they own the marks at issues and their associated copyrights, and has only received links to websites that the defendant admits are maintained by other entities that defendant claims are authorized licensees of the marks at issue. Lot to take in there. Essentially, it's saying, hey, the defendant's saying, hey, there are authorized licensees of the marks at issue, right? And they only received links to websites. What they're referring to, and he'll get to this, is Drive-Thru RPG and DM's Guild. Like, hey, man, we're using them on our products that we're selling. Like Star Frontiers is in DM's Guild. We haven't abandoned them. What are you guys talking about? And they're not licensees. He's going to talk about that too, right? DM's Guild and Drive-Thru are not licensees. They're distributors. That's different. He's going to say that too. Plaintiff has repeatedly requested proof of the licensing agreements. The defendant has not provided them. Number 12, defendant has failed to provide evidence they own the copyright to the images incorporated into the marks at issue. Defendant filed a cancellation proceeding on December 6th, asking the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board of the United States Patent and Trademark Office to cancel a single registration for one of the marks at issue. And the marks at issue says the Game Wizards mark. Okay, that's a specific mark that they're talking about. And then number 13, it says, taking the position that plaintiff's behavior constitutes trademark and copyright infringement, the plaintiff seeks a declaration that the copyrights and trademark rights to the marks at issue are not owned by the defendants. Okay, again, just saying, hey, man, we want those because they either abandon them or they just don't own them anymore. All right, so here we go. Kiva. So after alleging that WotC isn't using the marks, you plead that they told you they've licensed them, and so they say you abandoned them, but wait a minute, they're being used by these licensees. And that you know that there are actual companies using the marks in commerce right now. I mean, that kills any trademark abandonment claim. Dead. Don't it just? So he says, also you've very specifically pled that the rights to those marks and images were sold to Wizards. That ends any question about the copyrights and should give you a baseline to understand that anyone using those marks is doing it under license. They don't need to prove it to you. If you want to roll the dice that they're lying, go ahead. So he says, also, and this is really a side point, but we're 2 pages and 13 paragraphs into our complaint, and I have no idea which marks you're complaining about and why. If I had to draft this complaint, and thank God for running my own practice because I'll never have to be that guy, it would look something like this. WotC asserts rights in the following marks, which it purchased from old TSR in 1997. A, B, C, and D, right? List the marks. But WotC stopped using Mark A in commerce in 1998. Since then, no products have been made or marketed, blah. As such, on information and belief, consumers no longer associate Mark A with WotC or old TSR products. We really like those marks, not because we want to confuse consumers, but because they're great and want to register and actually use Mark A. But WotC just wants to keep it locked up forever. It's not complex. Why isn't this complaint structured that way? Back to the complaint and more adventures in not understanding personal jurisdiction. No, maintaining an office, here's where the office piece is. So he says, no, maintaining an office in the state, quote, doesn't get you there. I mean, it's just SCOTUS saying that. Maybe the Eastern District of North Carolina will disagree. Okay, that's where they say, well, Wizards has an office in North Carolina. That's why we're going to file suit here. Okay. By the way, 2 guesses on when new TSR registered to do business in North Carolina. Anybody guess? If you guessed a week ago, come collect your prize, Akiva says. Here's a screen of when they registered in North Carolina. Hey, wasn't that 11/30/2021? 2021! That is hilarious. So he continues, okay, this is genuinely surprising. They're saying they received an assignment of these applications. Someone else filed them and then assigned them to new TSR. Let's see who that was. Be right back. Just got to check the PTO. And that's the Patent Trademark Office is what he's referring to. So he says in 20 of the filing, it says plaintiff TSR LLC received an assignment of the applications to register a number of trademarks with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO. So in this screenshot here, they actually list the marks in question, right? One is an image of a lizard on or about August 19th. An image of a lizard. The other one is a stylized lettering spelling the letters TSR. That's the TSR angled logo. All right. The other C is man with a beard with the letters TSR and the phrase "the Game Wizards." So that's probably the circular one, kind of the half moon one, I think. Oh, no. That's the one probably standing up, right? Game Wizards. I think it's on some of the PHB's original advanced D&D PHB. The cover changed a couple times. Regardless, another one is what's called the wizard image. It just says the wizard image. And then the next one, letter E, is the dragon emblem, an image of a dragon with the letters TSR on or about the letters TSR, dragon emblem. That doesn't come to mind. Regardless. Yeah, it was Justin Lanaza individually who filed the initial applications and then assigned them to the LLC. Let's look at these trademarks, shall we? Actually, let's not. There are too many. Here are more. All of these, by the way, were filed by this North Carolina firm, which explains why they're the ones doing the litigation. The other ones that are being filed include Blackmore, the Blackmore mark, and then the name Star Frontiers. The Star Frontiers mark is what they're referring that as. So Wizards of the Coast did not like that, understandably. And so he mentions this. So previously they mentioned like, hey, in this filing, new TSR said, hey, they're not using them, but they have them licensed out to these. They've provided sites that they've licensed. They've provided these to licensees. And this is what this is referring to. So it says in 97 and provided links to 2 websites allegedly offering for sale products bearing each of the marks at issue being sold with defendant's permission. Yeah, and keep in mind here, Wizards could, say I wanted maybe I wanted to start a podcast and I wanted to use a logo like TSR podcast, talking about all the products TSR ever put out. And I use the TSR logo. Wizards could say, hey, say Victor was going to write a book and he's like, hey, I'm going to write a book on history of the TSR and I want to use the trademark in the book. And TSR says, yes, you could do that. He goes to Wizards and they say, yes, you can go ahead and do that. Of course, he probably stipulates in the book like, hey, this is a trademark of Wizards of the Coast used with permission, right? We always say used with permission, used without permission, right? Those things in the book. So some people would think, well, they let Victor do that. They put it in. Yeah, he's got it in his book. Well, I should be able to do that too. Well, I didn't get permission. And frankly, Wizards doesn't have to give me permission. They could say, yes, you can use it. You can use it. No, you can't use it. No, neither can you, but you can, right? Anyways. So this gets really wacky. So here is an email from Wizards. It says, Dear Mr. Nugent, we are counsel for Wizards of the Coast, LLC, owner of D&D, role-playing and successor in interest to TSR, which it acquired in 1997. We write concerning your client, Justin Lanaza, and TSR LLC's unlawful use of and applications to register seven TSR logos and word marks, collectively the TSR marks. Specifically, they list the 7 marks that they're wanting, like Star Frontiers, Blackmore, the Game Wizard logo, the TSR Dragon logo, the TSR Angled logo, the Lizard Man logo, and the TSR Wizard in the Moon logo. So they continue. The history of TSR incorporates use of TSR marks 1 through 5 above is laid out on your client's website. So they said, hey, you have 1 through 5 listed on your client's website at the tsrmuseum.com/history. Okay. As noted above, Wizards acquired the D&D property in connection with its purchase of TSR Incorporated in 97. think we can establish that, right? The acquisition included not only D&D, but all of TSR's intellectual property, including TSR trademarks, logos, and copyrights related to the TSR marks, as well as the goodwill associated with those marks. Okay, I think we all kind of know that as well, right? We're pretty up on that. Yeah, they bought it. They own it, right? They continue. Wizards has maintained continuous use of the TSR marks. So this is where things are really getting, they pertain to this whole thing. They're saying, look, man, we're continuing the use of these marks through its ongoing sale of older editions of the Dungeons & Dragons publications branded with these marks, currently through its licensee, TTRPG. So I guess they are a licensee according to Wizards. I did not realize that. I'm not sure what the difference is. But I thought Akiva was like, no, they don't have to be a licensee. And as well as through the DM's Guild. And those are the two links that they supplied. And that's the two links that they are referring to in the complaint, right? Like, hey, they supplied us like a couple links to these licensees. The TSR company, TSR marks, and related copyright materials remain inextricably linked in the minds of consumers and gamers with Dungeons & Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. Again, going back to Akiva said, hey, we as consumers recognize these products and those marks and that they're associated, right, with D&D and Wizards. So if you think that's not the case, they're saying like you're wrong. Wizards has maintained its trademark rights to the TSR marks, as well as the copyright in the designs incorporated into the TSR marks. Maintain them. They haven't abandoned them. That's what they're saying, right? Blah, blah, blah. They continue a little bit. Let's see. Right. Thank you, Akiva. Oh, my freaking God, it gets stupider, he says. Not sure if you mentioned this. Hey, Michael. But TSR 3 voluntarily dismissed the suit against WotC without prejudice yesterday. Oh, so I'm going through this for no reason. That's fantastic. The Indiegogo campaign is still going. They may try elsewhere outside South Carolina. Oh, interesting. Unbelievable. Good update. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it. And do you know where that is? I mean, where you came across that? Let me know. Those licenses might be for advertising purposes, including the drive-through site banners and logos. Ah, good point. So that might be where the licensing comes into play. Very, very well. Thank you. So, gets better, he says. Oh, my freaking God, it gets stupider. Y'all, WotC didn't say it had licensed third parties to sell stuff using the old marks. Well, they did in their letter. It was currently, which is true, selling the old works on third-party websites. And holy shit, new TSR went around offering to license other people to use the trademarks old TSR sold to WotC. Which is true. If you go to, this is crazy. So he's got a screenshot here. I think this was from like that letter. It must have been cropped, but it says, moreover, your client's registering an attempted licensing of the TSR marks willfully and intentionally infringes Wizards trademark rights by knowingly trading off the fame and goodwill associated with these marks. So here's the Dungeon Hobby Shop. Looks like a tweet says, would like to announce that TSR has been successfully resurrected. Anyone that is a OSR game designer, game publisher, or fantasy book publisher that would like to be licensed to use any of these 5 trademarks, feel free to contact us. That's crazy. Oh, I was writing a book. Man, now I'm going to put like the Wizard stuff on, the Wizard TSR logo on there. See you, Joe. And so it says your client is creating a likelihood of confusion with respect to Wizards authorization, sponsorship of, or association with their commercial activities, as well as creating a false suggestion of a connection in violation of this statute. Oosh. And this is where Akiva says distributors are not licensees. However, going to what Victor mentioned, even in Wizards' letter to TSR, they do reference licensee. So nonetheless, so I think there's a couple things going on here. They are distributors and they are probably licensees. Okay. He says, I feel like I'm having a stroke. Is this what a stroke feels like? Oh, man. This is just astoundingly stupid in all directions. It's walking up to prime Mike Tyson, kicking him in the knee, and then standing there going, well, you going to do something about it? Or do I need to punch you in the balls? There's no universe where this ends well for them. And of course, update from the chat, that's why I love having them here. They said that they dismissed the case without prejudice, which means they could still they could still file it, but I guess North Carolina is like, not in this state, you're not. So who knows this thing may not be done. So we're just going to keep trucking along so that when it does occur again, you guys are all well informed. And also, what the hell is the theory here on copyright? And then Akiva goes as far to tag the legal counsel that drafted this. And it says, yes, this has gotten bad enough that I feel like tagging them in. Your client made a marketing post using copyrighted artwork they don't own. What on earth are you thinking? Seriously, please, please, please call your malpractice carrier. You're in way over your heads here, and your client will have claims against you for the attorney's fees they're going to have awarded against them since you decided to bring a copyright DJ action. He's basically saying, hey, man, look out for yourself, attorney guy. You're going to get screwed on this manner. If I were you, I would be racing to withdraw that DJ claim before it's served. But also find yourself a competent copyright litigator to talk to because that's not your guy. And I say that with respect because I'm sure Mr. Nugent is a fine patent lawyer. And information and belief any use of defendant has made of the marks has been used merely to reserve the right to use. Okay, I don't know what that is. Anyway. See, now these are viable arguments. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that the new TSR gets to use it. And also it appears to be factually wrong. So it says upon, in the complaint, never use the lizard image as a trademark at any time, and as a result, has never developed any trademark rights in that image. So they're just substantially like, hey man, here, see this? They're not doing this, so we get to grab them. Greg Bell was the artist that drew the lizard image and was never an employee of TSR or defendant, and never assigned a work for hire agreement or copyright assignment or license transferring any rights to TSR Incorporated or defendant. So this lizard image, they're saying, isn't even the original rights to TSR originally. Like Greg, since he wasn't an employee, that doesn't matter necessarily. So I know this for a fact. Say, for example, Greg Bell was a contractor. And in his contract agreement, if he were to work for Wizards, and this goes for freelancers, right? Freelancers got to sign off on this stuff. If you create work product and you're a contractor, even though you're not an employee of the company, that work product is owned by the company. Like they take ownership. Other things that come into play is like when you talk about intellectual property, research and development, patents, right? So if you have, say, a scientist in a lab and they're creating the newest, latest and greatest, maybe whatever they create, right? They create a genetic identity kit and they file that patent. They may be co-authors on that patent. It depends on how it's filed. And it may, again, Sean is not a lawyer, not an attorney. Please do not seek him for legal counsel. Please, seek your own personal professional legal counsel and lawyer and attorneys. But they could simply be filed by the company. The author could be the scientist, but nonetheless, more than likely, the company's not going to allow the author to own that patent. Even though they went through the R&D themselves, they did, they published it, they did all this stuff. Who do you think is going to own that freaking property? The company's going to own it. Now, when somebody like a scientist or something along those lines joins a company, that's probably part of the negotiations. I haven't recruited for that particular space, but that may be part of the deal. Like, hey, you're going to come to Apple, you're going to invent stuff for us. Here's how it's going to be handled. Anything you invent, even if you're not an employee, you're a contractor, you do coding, and we're going to hire a coder, and you create some software or work on some software for us, that software doesn't become your property as a contractor. Dorigo. I see some raging dumpster fires. The new controversy is the dates on the form. Might be a typo or indication TSR3 planned this as a publicity stunt. Really? That is, oof, as my wife would say. You're oof. It's my new saying now. Oof. You are oof. Ted Nugent, that guy is PhD in dumpster fire. No, it's not Ted Nugent. I'm always amused by TSR comedy routine. All right. I mean, it was old TSR logo. That means WotC bought the rights. And it was incorporated into a presumably copyrighted TSR book from the 1970s. Unless you've got hard evidence that Greg Bell didn't sign a work for hire agreement, you're dead in the water. Right? That's the work for hire agreement would cover that. Which Greg Bell would probably have something to stand on, right? Like, hey man, I drew this thing, but I didn't let TSR, I never want to, TSR and I had an agreement that it was my property. They could use it in the book, right? You get into all these rights management things. So, music, things of that nature, Twitch, YouTube, they have music that you can use. But you can't own. You can use, but you can't own, right? So there's all these rights with, especially like digital photography. People. For example, if you solicit an artist's question may be, "Oh well, are you looking to buy this, or are you looking to use it?" Because I'll tell you what, you can go to iStock Photography and you can buy an image. Or you can purchase the rights to use the image. Two completely different things. And I'll tell you what, when you check out the cost between the two, they're crazy different. Like you're talking $5,000 for an image and you can own it. Then you lay claim to it. It becomes your property. Or you could purchase the rights to use it, which is much less. But then it allows any of you to be able to purchase the same rights, which means that photograph could show up on all our websites. That's the deal. That's why it doesn't cost as much, because the person who actually produced it is getting paid by multiple people at a smaller cost. And frankly, I think that's where their probably bread and butter is, right? All right. Holy balls. Let's get going, man. I'm going to be here all day. Thanks. Oh, God. Why does it always end? All right. Same goes for this one. And the upon information and belief language tells me you're not expecting to get testimony from this woman that she is the sole copyright owner. Record scratch. I'm sorry, what? That's the end of your factual allegations? Really? No, really. That's it. Went through all of them. That's it. These A through I. Like, my guys, you never even mentioned your theory of why WotC doesn't own these 3 images in your complaint. You're just sort of throwing it out there. Right? And earlier we said, if Akiva were to file this, this is how it would be stated. Like, hey, we're disputing these specific marks. And this is why they stopped using them. Goodman Games hosted a very informative seminar during one of the Cyclops Con. A great panel of artists who spoke about the different ways they license and sell their work. I recommend it. That's a good tip, Michael. Is that out on the web? So he continues. And holy hell, that's really all of it. Yes, it really is. Wow. Ooh, so yeah, this is a shit sandwich of a complaint. Maybe a real issue buried in there about continuous use. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, he says. New TSR's attempts to get these marks are specifically because they still resonate with the relevant consumers. There will be confusion. This is not a winnable battle for them, and they should walk away now, but they won't. So somebody alluded to this being a publicity stunt, which who knows? Maybe it is. I don't know how expensive it is to file these suits. You know, if it's relatively cheap, maybe. I don't know. We're talking about it, right? But that, I thought, Akiva, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll put, obviously, a link to his Twitter down below when we wrap up this video. Really, really appreciate all the legal education and information. I feel hugely enlightened, and I love his take on everything. Like just his, like, it's like, for real? And I've looked at some of his tweets in the past too, and he's like puts it out there. So he's good. I like it. Anyways, so that's the TSR spiely, and apparently update is that they withdrew or was thrown out or whatever the case is in North Carolina without prejudice. So will they refile in another state? Who knows? I guess they could refile. Could they refile in North Carolina? I imagine they can because it was without prejudice. Perhaps shaping it up a little bit. One of the things that, you know, why would they file in North Carolina? That was a point of contention. Like, go to Delaware, go to Washington, make some sense of this and jurisdiction-wise. But anyways, so that's TSR. That's what's understood in the Indiegogo. So there's a difference of what, you know, the lawsuit is all about marks, right? The trademarks that they want and think that they're entitled to, okay? Not the disclaimer that everybody's floating around out there on old legacy stuff. And they're, you know, that it's just, who wants to give these guys any freaking money? Like, it just doesn't, mind-boggling to me. Like, buddies that are like, yeah, man, for total sure. Like, there's people that would do this just on principle. I hate Wizards of the Coast, man. I'm whatever. Hey, you know, an enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like, I don't understand it at all. Wayne says they paid lawyers. They paid for the business registration and patent registrations in North Carolina. Real advertisement must be cheaper. I don't know, man. I mean, what's it? I don't know how much it costs to file for an LLC. I don't think it's that terribly expensive. And who knows who this lawyer is? I mean, who the hell knows? Like, but yes, I would think that there would be more affordable ways. And to what end? To what end? Like it. So what is it? You get the marks, then what? Then you're going to sue Wizards because they're selling Star Frontiers with your trademark? Dude, that's what is the end game in this? I think that's what it is. They had mentioned creating Star Frontiers. And then I think they actually put out the character sheet. We might have brought this up on one of the streams on a Saturday where they created a Star Frontier character sheet, and it was like D20 based. It had the Will Fort. Was it Will Fort? What's the damn third save? For Pete's sakes, my brain's going on me. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Wizards is gotta just, the Wizards legal counsel's like gotta be just laughing their ass off at this stuff. Like, I guess I gotta write up that letter again. And I just want those guys to make their own company and come up with something new. Those coattails are getting really laddered by this point. Why not just try and be creative for once? No shit, right? Right? So, all right. Good morning. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about that is interesting that people has got a little buzz is Kickstarter. If you haven't gotten the memo on this one, Kickstarter is creating a new platform in the future with a release of 2022, so it's not that far off. It's next year. Probably late next year is my guess. It's going to take a while to get to this. That's going to be based on blockchain. And there's some people that have their like hands up in the air about this. we all have different opinions about Kickstarter, but one thing we have to, I think, acknowledge to some degree is that Kickstarter has done wonders for the RPG hobby in general. Like, there is a ton of high quality, well produced, I don't know if that's necessarily it, but so quality produced role-playing games that may not have ever seen the light of day had there not been crowdfunding. And Kickstarter is a big, I think it's safe to say that it's one of the kings of crowdfunding. However, I did read somewhere that Kickstarters, the RPG kickstarting space is, I think, one of the huge movers of that company. I really do believe that. I've said this on the Gaming and BS podcast. I've hinted at it. Brett and I were at Gamehole Con one year, and it's not Game Master. Who's the game guys here in Madison? Games Crafter. TheGameCrafter.com. These guys are also here in Madison. They also, so what they do is they help you make your own game. Like you don't know how to get meeples and stuff. We'll help you with that. We'll get you that. So they help. And here's some of the games that they've offered and come through them. The reason I bring up the Game Crafter in this is because the Game Crafter had a kind of side thing at one of the Gamehole conventions here in Madison. Kind of had their own seminars and things you could participate in. And when Brett and I were there was a guy from a major outlet, Forbes, Fortune, one of those two, started with an F, and he covered Kickstarter. And he specifically asked us why we thought that RPGs far and away fund and do better on Kickstarter than anything else. That's crazy. And I get emails from Kickstarter because I've kickstarted things other than RPGs. I know, shocker. Hey, hey, just so you know, believe it or not, there are other things that get kickstarted on Kickstarter that aren't role-playing games. I know, it's crazy. Believe it or not, like I bought a belt right from there. I bought like this wallet thingy. I don't have my iPad here, but I've gotten an iPad stand you stick on the back and it kind of folds out and in, to make it flat. Like, I've bought stuff on Kickstarter that weren't RPGs, but apparently the amount of those projects funding and being successful versus the role-playing game space, and probably board games, I'm guessing probably looped into that as well, are far and away more successful. Which was, I didn't know. I didn't have any insight. I know RPGs did fairly well, but I didn't know, comparatively speaking. And frankly, I don't know if there's been any publicly released info from Kickstarter that says, hey, here's kind of our book of business. And frankly, they don't have to, right? But I'll tell you what, man, Mothership, Avatar, multi-million-dollar Critical Role, for F's sake. Come on. So I think we've established the fact that Kickstarter is great for role-playing games, regardless of what your thoughts are. I know that some people, like in the Zine Quest space, we had a comment on the Discord that was like, I know a lot of people that do zines and they don't like Kickstarter. My question is why? Yes, Kickstarter gets a slice of your pie. That might be the biggest issue. But at the same time, what are you going to do? Put it on your website and hope that, people find it. People have resources like itch.io. There's Indiegogo. So, hey, if Kickstarter isn't your jam and those other ones will help, great. It's your personal decision. I just like to know what it is about Kickstarter specifically that might have your hands up in a frustration. So the announcement, so they're going to create a new platform. It's going to be based on blockchain. CELO, C-E-L-O, I believe is the blockchain, yes, that they're going to use. And this is the announcement that says, hey, this is what we're going to do. So since 2009, more than $6 billion has been pledged on Kickstarter, funding over 200,000 creative projects that otherwise may have never been made. Okay, these projects have been remarkably generative, creating an estimated 750,000 plus part-time jobs, 80,000 full-time jobs, over 20,000 companies and nonprofits, and $13.5 billion in additional economic impact. Yes, Kickstarter, thank you. Yes, you have contributed. You have helped facilitate the growth of these things. Yeah, okay. Pat on the back for Kickstarter, right? Yet, despite all the impressive numbers, there remains an endless line of talented and creative people waiting for opportunity. Okay, our mission to help bring creative projects to life is a pledge to help unlock this talent, latent potential in people and their ideas. To truly serve that mission, we need to build on what made Kickstarter so innovative in the first place, the power of a large network of people working together towards a common goal. That's maybe key to this. Maybe something overlooked, but now that I'm kind of, hey, hindsight's 2020, what we're about to talk about, this could be, okay, keep this in mind when we move forward. So today we're announcing our commitment to a more open, collaborative, and decentralized future. Hey-o, decentralized. Okay. As a first step, we're supporting the development of an open source protocol that will essentially create a decentralized version of Kickstarter's core functionality. This will live on a public blockchain and be available for collaborators, independent contributors, and even Kickstarter competitors from all over the world to build upon, connect to, or use. We think bringing all that we've learned about crowdfunding since 2009 to inform the development of a decentralized protocol will open up exciting new opportunities for creative projects to come to life. In the coming weeks, a white paper, which is going to be interesting. Probably boring as hell, but, maybe I can get a keep to go through it. A white paper will be released outlining the technology and plans for the protocol. In the spirit of decentralization, we're establishing an independent organization that will kick off the development of the protocol. Kickstarter PBC will provide this new independent organization with some funding, appoint an initial board, and commit to being one of the protocol's earliest clients, meaning Kickstarter.com will be built on top of the protocol. As a user, the Kickstarter experience you're familiar with will stay the same. You won't see the protocol, but you will benefit from its improvements. TLDR, they're going blockchain. So everybody's like, what does that mean? Crypto? Hey, crypto. I don't even know what the hell, right? So what needs to be understood is what is blockchain. Blockchain, in a nutshell, without getting into, blockchain college 101, is essentially in a block, all right, you have data and you have a hash and you have the old hash, okay? Current hash, old hash, data. That's a block. So a hash is kind of like, it's a fingerprint, okay? It's a unique identifier. Many digital files you can hash, right? So if you have a Word doc and it has a particular makeup, okay? If you change a letter in that Word doc, the hash is not the same. So hashes are typically used when you download a file from the internet and you want to make sure it's of its authenticity, right? That it hasn't been manipulated. So it's important because, say for example, it's an open source project. I go download it from some weird third party. What would prevent somebody else from downloading that piece of software, putting in spyware or something to siphon things off, maybe put a script on my computer that uses my computer power to mine cryptocurrency without me knowing. One way to do that is the original author can say, hey, here's the original hash to this software. If you download it from my site, check the hash, and if it matches, then you have an authentic version of my software. If the hash doesn't match, then something's wrong. Then it's not the same. Something's changed, okay? In a block, there's data. That data could be anything. So that's the important piece. People are saying, like, blockchain, cryptocurrency. Yes, that they equate one to be of the other, which is not the case. Cryptocurrency uses blockchain technology, but not all things that are blockchain are cryptocurrency. Okay? That's something to be aware of. All right. Man, this is going to get in over my head. Probably shish kebabbed here on YouTube and ran out of town after this. But nonetheless, so having said that, that's good. That's something you should all know. So when you use blockchain technology, it doesn't have to be for cryptocurrency. Okay? It could be, oh boy, and somebody's calling me, which is my wife, because my dog's up. So just hold on a second. All right, grab a cup of coffee. I'm going to be right back. I got to turn up the thermostat because my wife's freezing. So hold on one second. All right, I'm back. Sorry for the delay. All right. Ooh. So, all right. Although games are 1.68 billion of the 5.73 billion successful campaigns, so games are roughly 29% of their successful funding. Woo, that's a lot. All right. So, where was I? Blockchain. Data. So as something changes with a block, the hash is updated, right? So as you have a block, something changes, it creates, say the data changes or what have you. The hash, it has a new hash, and then it has an old hash. Okay. Next block, same thing. New hash, old hash. So that's the blockchain. Huh. So you can trace the hashes of each block. Now, people have used this for cryptocurrency, right? Ledgers. So if I have a ledger, or maybe it's a wallet of, and the data is Bitcoin, and I decide to give you a smidgen of my Bitcoin, then my ledger changes and creates a new block in the chain with a new hash. And in that same block, it has an entry for the old hash. All right. The beauty of blockchain technology is it's peer-to-peer, which is also a component of it, which means that that's what the centralization piece comes into place, or the decentralization. So everybody has a copy of this ledger, right? All these ledger entries. And when somebody tries to hack all that stuff, they have to hack all of those, which is pretty tough. And so when somebody hacks by ledger or what have you, and they could say, well, wait a minute. And it's, everybody else has a copy and things don't add up. That is a part of the benefits, I guess, of a decentralized piece. Now, if I have, one of the things about this is that there obviously are hashes, and you start out with the 0 hash, which is the Genesis block. Because in the Genesis block, it doesn't have an old hash. There isn't an old hash. It's only the data and the new hash. But nonetheless, there is obviously, with decentralization and using hashes and data, some would say, well, there's no identifying details, right? So people are using cryptocurrency to do nefarious things, and it's hard to track and trace to personal individuals because it's not associated with a social security number, here in the US, which we use for like taxes and, maybe medical records and things of that nature. Okay, so not to get into way down the blockchain, but one thing is to be aware of is people will say, well, what does this mean when Kickstarter is going to blockchain, right? They talk about protocols and all this stuff. Well, in blockchain, one of the things that you can use blockchain technology to do is kind of like a notary, right? It's to certify whatever data is being used, that data is legit and hasn't been tampered with. And the reason we know this is because of the hash, the blockchain itself, the hash, the data, and the old hash, and the peer-to-peer copies that everybody has. So for example, if we wanted to get rid of social security numbers, say here in the US, which is a problem with identity theft, if you get somebody's SSN, they could start stealing your identity. They do that by using your social security and opening fraudulent credit cards that, and all of a sudden you're like, what do you mean I'm $100,000 in debt? Well, sir, you've got these 5 credit cards. I don't have those 5 credit cards. I've never seen them in my life. This is your social security number, right? Yes, but I never opened those. Well, I'm sorry, but it's all in these applications. You were approved. Somebody else is using them all. And it is bad news. With blockchain technology, you could say in the data of the block, it could be whoever Sean Kelly is, right? Sean Kelly, his address, his phone number, his driver's license, identification number, blah, 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 right? And because it's in the blockchain, that is a hash. It creates the hash. It's a unique identifier. So somebody, if we're to say, I'm going to steal Sean's social security number and there's an access to it, maybe that's part of the hash, right? So then it hash changes. Well, no, that's not me because look, it's changed, right? So there's this like certifiable method behind all this stuff. Again, what does this have to do with Kickstarter, Sean? Well, when they talk about partners and protocols and things of that nature, so there are people that are making blockchain applications or applications that run off of blockchain and how this hash data, old hash stuff works, right? The fingerprint, the distributed piece. So, for example, in Kickstarter, like I mentioned, it said in this little press release, it says, hey, the power of a large network of people working together towards a common goal, right? It says it a couple times, can work together towards a common goal. To truly serve that mission, we need to build what made Kickstarter so innovative, a power of a large network, people working together towards a common goal. So you could have potential vendors inside this blockchain that were, hey, you want to publish a role-playing game. We have, printers, we have binders, we have marketing, and they're all signed up through this system. And some would say it adds maybe some legitimacy to them or not, who knows. But say they're not legitimate. Maybe they're in this blockchain or whatever the case is, and they're providing products and services, and people are like, man, that place sucks, right? It doesn't make them a better printer, right? Or publish like printer or binder for books. But one thing they can't do is they can't necessarily, I mean, they could open up another store and then get up on the system and then create a new block and then they're, a different person or entity. Sure. But one of the things is that it establishes who they are, what they're about, what they provide, and maybe how well their quality is, and all that can be stored in that data in a blockchain. I am too dumb to understand how to put that all together as a working model. I'm not a developer, but with some of the nuances of blockchain, could that be facilitated? It sounds like it could, right? I don't know. Not wanting to sound like a Luddite, just skeptical of CeeLo wrapping itself in the more moral armor up front. Offsets are better than no offsets, but not a solution to the real issue. Right. Agreed. Like in CeeLo, I mean, if you go on Coinbase, which is an exchange for cryptocurrency and things of that nature, there's tons of them out there. Like it would make your head explode on how many different cryptocurrencies are out there. It's crazy silly. There are ones that are specific to the metaverse, right? Like, hey, I'm going to join the metaverse. You can earn cryptocurrency, and you earn that, and then you can sell it for real dollars. You can use it in the world to buy digital products. There's NFTs that are making their way around. I mean, it is crazy. Wayne also says, talking about their carbon negative claim. So one of the things about blockchain and cryptocurrency is, in order to create these tokens, so that probably even needs more explanation, is in order to create you can create your own Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin, just to give you an example, one Bitcoin right now, if you had one Bitcoin and you wanted to convert that to US dollars, you're probably looking at $47,000. But you're like, well, Sean, what? I can't buy. So I'd have two, like I'd have one Bitcoin, I'd have half. I couldn't even afford a quarter of a Bitcoin. Well, that's the thing, right? So they slice up a Bitcoin, right? Because you're not going to give a full Bitcoin to somebody. It's not, get out of your head that this is this physical. I'm holding up a physical Canadian. What is this? Mark Tasaka sent it to me from Canada. It's a coin. It's a US Canadian dollar. Like Ron Swanson would say something cynical, but nonetheless, it's a Canadian dollar. It's a coin, right? So this is, worth $1 Canadian. I give you it. You have its worth as $1 Canadian. In the virtual digital currency space, you could slice it up, right? You could break it down. So instead of like a Bitcoin, it's 0.000345678 Bitcoin. And that has a corresponding value. This is going to get into a freaking rabbit hole. All right. So there's a lot on Coinbase. CeeLo is on there as well, and it trades, and I think it's at currently like $4 and some change. And it spiked up the other day. I don't know if it was because of Kickstarter choosing the CeeLo piece. I'm not sure. Maybe because CeeLo put out a news and said, hey, Kickstarter is going to use us for their platform going forward. Yay. So having said that, to garner these coins, you can either somehow Farty, I'm going to talk about you too. Farty mentions this too. I'm going to mention his 2 cents in a second. But anyways, to create these coins, right there, you can buy the coins that already exist, or you can mine them. And mining them is when it reminds me back in the day, the SETI project is an example. There's the SETI project. There's the genome project. If you're not familiar with those projects, what happened is, to map the human genome or take the data from SETI, which is an extraterrestrial project, and from this, that they're gathering from all the universe, and they're getting all this data. Well, the problem they were finding is that to have this data processed, you needed supercomputers, and supercomputers cost a lot of money. So what they did was they created the SETI project and the Human Genome Project, which you can go out and check. And in the Human Genome Project, it's called folding, right? Folding data and all this other stuff. But what it's doing is you and I have computers sitting in our house doing nothing. Maybe they're idle and not doing a damn thing. But you can download a client and take bits and pieces of that data. And as your computer's just kind of sitting there, it takes your computer cycles and processes and works through that data and then sends it back to SETI. And if you get, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of computers that are just kind of sitting around doing nothing to do some of that work, it moves the project along and processing the data. So there isn't as big a backlog, right? Because you're kind of cranking through it. You're not having to rent the supercomputer that IBM uses and eating up all your money. It's more of a donation. Like, hey, can you donate some of your computer time to process some of this data? And people are like, yeah, it'd be cool. And they have like scoreboards to who's doing the most and all this stuff. And graphic cards are involved and CPU power is involved and all this stuff. And you're kind of like helping discover aliens or, mapping the human genome. It's kind of cool. All right. Hey, science. With cryptocurrency, you can buy certain cards, mining stuff to mine Bitcoin, where it's, I don't know the methodology, but it's not, you're cranking out computer cycles to create out this piece of cryptocurrency. And that's what people started doing, was like, the problem is that it takes an exorbitant amount of energy to do it. Right. So your computer's always cranking away. It's always got, huge amount of CPU power. It's huge amount of wattage to power this thing, to make this happen. And you had it going all the time. And before, it wasn't economically viable, because what people were doing was they're cranking out all this, you're paying your electrical bill and say it's like $1,000 a month, and your cryptocurrency, hey, I mined a coin. I got a full coin. It's worth 0.001 cent. But people were like, no, I'm going to still keep doing it. And so they did. Well, what happened was the 0.001 cent cryptocurrency became now worth $47,000. So there are people that professionally, they mine for cryptocurrency, and that puts that out into kind of the world. And there's a limitation on some cryptocurrencies, right? So Bitcoin, there's a finite amount. Once all the Bitcoin is done and mined and produced, that's it. It's over. Finished. Done. Set amount. There are other cryptocurrencies that don't have a ceiling. I think Ethereum might be one of them, where it can be mined until the dawn of time. Cryptocurrency, blockchain. Why did I tune into Sean about talking about how to RPGs and what's this have to do with anything? Well, CeeLo is a thing that they're going to be using. And as somebody mentioned in the chat, that the technology that CeeLo uses and the technology that Bitcoin uses is not the same. There's things that differ. And I also mentioned Coinbase. If you go onto Coinbase and you pull up these different cryptocurrencies, they have a particular purpose, okay, or an industry that they're usually focused in on, right? So I don't know. I should have probably put up an example. It might be something like, I don't know, agricultural based. Who knows? But it has a specific kind of point in that space for whatever reason, okay? I'm a little fuzzy on how one like Decentral, I think, is one. Manza maybe? Manza is, I think, for one of the meta universes, right? So that's specifically kind of centered to go into the metaverse and buy goods and services in that space. That's what that is set up for, right? If you want to buy things, well, then you better have that man's a cryptocurrency, right? It's a weird exchange, right? You know, it's like going to France. Hey, well, not anymore because they're part of the EU, but it's like going to England. Hey, you gotta go to England, you're gonna buy stuff, you gotta have British pounds. You gotta take your dollar, go to the exchange, get some British pounds, go to the store, use the British pounds. Ugh. Anyways, so having said that, CeeLo company is the ones they're gonna power, and they are touting that they are an open source and carbon negative blockchain. So carbon negative means, hey, we got a blockchain and we're not killing the earth trying to make our tokens, is what they're touting. And it's becoming a buzz topic because of climate change and things of that nature. And it says it's as the best technology and community on which to build the protocol. They're inspired by CeeLo, ecosystems, thoughtful approach, blah, 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 blah. And CeeLo, if you're not familiar with CeeLo, okay, and this is kind of interesting too, all right? Here's CeeLo, kind of their philosophy. You could get their white paper and find out more about them and their values, right? Unique purpose, connectedness. But they are also C Labs is the piece behind CeeLo. Okay, so C Labs is behind CeeLo, right? Okay, they build this, right? CL, building financial technology to enable prosperity for all. The reason I bring up C Labs, because I looked into them a little bit. So what is unique about decentralization is it is a philosophy or mantra or mentality, right? So when you're like, hey, you know, we want finance available to all, and we don't want, you know, the Fed to dictate the market. We want, you know, there's a lot of arguments around cryptocurrency and what it can benefit and can't benefit. And so when you talk about like, hey, I don't want the government involved with the financial system component, it's how does that transfer over into like management and leadership? So that's why I bring this up. So C Labs, I looked at. So when you think of a big corporation, you're like, here's the CEO, here's the SVPs, here's the board of directors, then there's directors, and then there's managers, and then there's, you know, supervisors, and then there's staff, right? Very hierarchical. And C Labs is not that type of company. As a matter of fact, there is a name for it. And I didn't know this until I started reading into their kind of spiel. A teal organization. Okay. Which is very interesting. I know I'm going off on a tangent. I apologize. I know you guys want to talk about RPGs and shit, but teal organization is an emerging organizational design that aligns with decentralization. So now it not only transfers from like cryptocurrency and decentralized finance or DeFi, but it also goes into organizational makeups of a company, which means if I join this company, like they consider all their people in the company as, I think, partners is what they're called. Although they have titles like system lead, but teal, I started reading about teal organizations, learn about teal right here. And I read this and I was like, And it talks about how that is it. And I only bring this up because could the partnership with CeeLo in turn really dealing with C Labs transfer over to this new company at Kickstarter and how they organize their organizational structure. Now, to you and I, it probably doesn't matter. We don't care who the staff is and who's the managers and who's the directors and who's the CEO leading this company and how that's all, you know, you're set in this chair in this bucket to do X and Y. However, it could come out with how they run the services to us. It could be. I don't know. Maybe it's a stretch. Maybe I'm out on a deep end. But it is a different type of philosophy, than your typical, dare I say, capitalist. I'm the CEO making billions of dollars, and everybody's below me, and everybody that gets further down the road, down, makes less and less money. I don't know. Cancer research folding those proteins. Cool. Two, good point. Thanks, Vornak. So yes, there's cancer research folding projects you can get in on regardless. So anyways, so one thing that came up was this Jeff Ingalls thing. He's just like, I don't know who Jeff is. He gives like an interesting tweet. He's a board game enthusiast, podcaster, books, building blocks of tabletop game design and game production. And Jeff seems, I don't know, like Twitter. I take him for face value. And he said he had a little philosophy on Kickstarter blockchain announcement, a little bit of a thread, not too long here. I received an interesting email laying out what may be behind this. An author requested to remain anonymous, so he's passing it along from another person. But here are the details that he mentioned. Europe has a new law in place. I can't confirm or deny this. I honestly don't know. Europe has a new law in place that will place some restrictions on crowdfunding platforms. This has not been widely reported, mainly because it is a European issue. And he has this source. Okay, here's the source. It's in French. I do not parlez-vous. And he says, to summarize, within 1 year, crowdfunding sites will have to have approval from the European Union. Also, they will be responsible in case of failure of a project. What? That is not the Kickstarter way. They stay away from that stuff. Hey, Ken Whitman gets on there, has 5 Kickstarters, you all kick in, and he doesn't deliver, and he runs away with $1 million? Well, shit, that's not our problem. I don't know. So, also, they will be responsible in case of failure of a project. Yes, wow, and will have to pay back in this case. So imagine the Kickstarters that never got fulfilled. All right? And paying that money back. How do they get the money? I don't know. Blockchain? Who knows? Okay, we're going to get into it. Law also imposes a limit on the amount of money raised by a single project owner. 5 million euros in 1 year, which can be a problem for some companies like Mythic Games, which exceed this amount. This is a simplification. It's more complex than this. Okay, many of the stuff that we talk about are more complex than a freaking crazy man on YouTube talks about, right? But yeah, imagine that. A limitation. Ooh, well, they're communists over there. That's the problem. Anti-capitalists at European Union. Switching to blockchain allows Kickstarter to do several things. Decentralizing the service will allow them to bypass the European Union approval. The anonymity of the blockchain, it makes it impossible to know where what comes in and where what goes out. Oh, does it? I don't know. They will be able to keep their current operation, i.e. not being responsible in case of project failure. And finally, the blockchain is in fashion, and it is a great opportunity to play in front of shareholders. That's one thing I'm not getting that's one thing I'm not trying, I can't get my head wrapped around, right? Because it's like financial organizations like, I don't know, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan Chase, whatever, like all these movers in the finance, like what do they think of blockchain and cryptocurrency? And I'm like, do they like it? Do they not? I don't know. Because part of them don't want to be regulated by the government. But then again, do you want it to be the Wild West? Like, I think there's like this weird line that these guys fall in. Shit, man. Ty, good morning. Good to see you. Glad you snuck in here. He goes and continues. That's why they want to put the system in place as early as 2022 before the obligation of the European approval.
Consumers will not benefit from this change. It's just Kickstarter bending the rules to avoid the European law. Again, this is just a theory, but it seems plausible. Update. More knowledgeable folks than I have advised that the new regulation does not cover for crowdfunding, but other activities, crowd equity, and lending. So this theory is incorrect. So I went all through that only to get it squashed. Shit. Sorry, guys. That had to have been added after. Yeah. Because see, this is the December 10th and then 3 hours ago. So he updated his thread, which I can appreciate. Thank you, Jeff. That's not often found on Twitter. People don't typically go back and update that stuff. That is interesting. So I guess it was a theory, and it looks like it's probably wrong. There you go. Now I have to delete this video. I don't know, but nonetheless, but that's not to say this type of regulation couldn't come up, in the European Union or a different country that affects the business model of Kickstarter. And how would that work? I don't know. What if you paid for everything on Kickstarter with cryptocurrency? I mean, right now, cryptocurrency isn't necessarily taxed. I'm sure the government loves that, right? Sure. Oh, man. I don't know. He says, I think Jeff Engelstein is part of the Dice Tower podcast review network. Okay. Could that be? Michael says, could that be behind Kickstarter's new policies limiting the number of concurrent projects and fulfillment? I don't know. I think it seems like that would kill Kickstarter like companies. Yeah. I think they would love the Wild West. Government will always bail out no matter how risky because too big to fail, Warnock says, regarding, decentralized finance versus government oversight. Yeah, probably. They could probably manipulate markets, right? They got all this shit, buy all the Bitcoin, and just trickle it out there, buy it back, trickle it out there, buy it back. It's all over the place. They don't want to be regulated, but they want their competitors to be regulated, whatever leads to money without responsibility. Now, maybe you should have read the end of the book first. Hi, Ty. Watch your mouth. I know, another story, cool storyline betrayed by Twitter. Damn you, Twitter. But Farty, I want to say, Farty made up a good point on our Discord, which I hope Farty doesn't mind me putting it out there. He said, my 2 cents, I think they want to use a blockchain to reduce some confusion and save money on shipping. If I'm buying multiple Kickstarters, it would be great if they could use specific identifiers to track all of these back to me, especially if many of those end up at the same printers. If luck should have it that I've got 2 Kickstarters shipping from the same location, then they can bulk ship. It would also probably do away with the need to chase people to fill out backer kit emails. They should be able to track who ordered what and where those products are going to. Kickstarters are probably crazy complicated to track. Books, minis, t-shirts, stickers, etc. That's a lot of info. Blockchain would really help cut the confusion in tracking, which is probably the most sensible thing I've read on this whole thing, honestly. So thank you, Farty, for providing that. And I noticed the irony of that making most sense, and referring to the person who posted it as Farty is a little strange, but nonetheless, appreciate it. Because I think that's probably where the strength is, right? Think of all the logistics. Think about the PDFs. Hey, you want this PDF? You got to go here. Well, what if Kickstarter decided to start hosting those PDFs on their site? Maybe they become a third party. Hey, you want to host your PDF on our site? We can just boop, everything there. I don't have to go to drive-through. If I was drive-through, I'd be I don't know about this, right? And maybe they don't have to put it in drop boxes. They could be digitally signed, right, through the blockchain. Yes, you are the rightful owner. They could tout that as a piracy thing. anti-piracy, not a piracy, anti-piracy might be a piece of that. So, for example, you go into the Kickstarter, they're like, yep, PDFs, PDF level. Oh, and if you get the print, we had the PDFs. You're backed at this level. Everything is done. You know, we know who you are. You're in the blockchain. Put in your unique identifier. Great. We don't know who you are. We don't know you're Sean Kelly. You're just XYZDPQ 125854785 blah blah blah. That's who you know. That's it. And we're going to tack on this block and give you access to this because you're the backer. We've collected your money, whether it be U.S. currency or pound or peso or whatever. European, the EU, blah, blah, blah. And then the bulk shipment piece, Ty says, yeah, it would be cool, right? Like there probably would be a lot more options. And I think with the way Kickstarter's set up, I haven't run a Kickstarter, disclaimer, right? Like I'm an armchair quarterback. People, you guys should know this by now. I'm talking completely out of this end of my body, down there. But well, speculation, right? Hyperbole, things to think about. And say, for example, you go in there, you sign up, you got to have an ID. I want to back something. I peruse what level. I pick the level. It's got a bunch of stuff, knickknacks all over the place. It's probably got playing cards. You've got books. From a role-playing perspective, even board games, and all those things may come from different suppliers. Maybe they're not even done yet and assembled. How does that play a role with, okay, I got to get the meeples, I got to get the board printed from this person, I got to get that shipped. Oh, and then I got them all assembled somewhere, and then once they're assembled, then I have to pack them up, and then I got to ship it out to this person. Oh, and by the way, they got add-ons. Like, it just seems like sometimes an overwhelming, daunting process. And I haven't even run a Kickstarter, man. I have heard these things are exhausting to companies. So if it could make it easier for the people running the Kickstarter or administering them, great. And in turn, making it a better experience for us, the consumer, well, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. If it runs on blockchain, we don't care. We're not going to care. It's so the people that are going to like, what is this going to do for my experience? Maybe jumping the gun a little bit. Now, cryptocurrency, does that come into play? Maybe as it becomes more prevalent, maybe it becomes more legitimized through not just the crypto bros circuit, but people actually understand like, oh, okay, this is kind of a thing. And, maybe I need to have some so I can buy these things. I don't know. My guess is that it's not going to change from the mighty dollar, but the blockchain pieces and how the blockchain can be used to facilitate a lot of this stuff, like Farty pointed out, may be beneficial to us. So it may not be just I don't see it as a cash grab necessarily around cryptocurrency. And I think cryptocurrency needs to take a back seat because a lot of what's mentioned and why they're doing it has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. It's about the blockchain. I would not want Kickstarter to become another item host for products. Why? I mean, you're going to download it. Could verify that you own it. And if it's found somewhere else, like on a pirate's site, they may be able to come back and track it to you as, hey, this guy's throwing out our copyrighted stuff. It's in the blockchain. It's DRM. Kind of. Not really. Like it doesn't prevent. Could it prevent somebody? Maybe. That's probably not far off. Blockchain and DRM. Like, oh boy, that might be a whole can of worms. Like, hey, you have a particular blockchain identifier. You're not authorized to open this product because doesn't contain data that's pertinent to you. I mean, let's face it, TTRPG, I mean, they put a watermark on it, but that's not DRM. And we know how people love DRM. Digital rights management, if you're not familiar, it's kind of the walled garden. Kind of is already. Ty responded to Victory, yeah. So, I don't know. We'll see. Can it get any worse? Can't get any worse, can it? I don't know. One of the things that I read, I got another source here I forgot to mention. Oh, man. Did I not put it in here? Yes, I did. Here we go. So another thing I came across was this. Oh, man. All these... I hate... What are we going to do? Look at that header. Oh, my goodness. Okay. So Kickstarter will move its crowdfunding platform to blockchain. It's creating a new company to develop and distribute the technology. This is from Bloomberg. And I found some interesting things out here. For more than a decade, Kickstarter PBC has convinced the public to pay people to follow through on their ideas to build a gadget, make a film, or create a piece of art. In our case, RPGs, baby. It was in some ways a harbinger of today's digital economy built around cryptocurrencies, decentralized organizations, and NFT art. And if you think about it, there are some similarities, right? Crowdsourcing, there's a theme that's going on here, right? Something we may not have slap us directly in the face. So on Wednesday, Kickstarter plans to unveil a project that will merge the two worlds. It's hatching a standalone company, like I mentioned, based on blockchain. And the new company will make the tools available for anyone to create a competing crowdfunding site. That's crazy. The new company does not have a name, blah, blah, blah. New protocol, New York-based company. It's a large technical undertaking. Embarking on the project was a big decision. But it was ultimately an easy one to make because it fits with Kickstarter's mission, which is to help bring creative projects to life. I mean, listen to some of these things. The Peloton stationary bike started with a Kickstarter campaign. $307,000. They're now a freaking publicly traded company. So did Oculus Rift. $2.4 million. Got bought by Facebook for multi-billion dollars. Can't even remember. Was it crazy amount of money? Kickstarter helped finance new records from Amanda Palmer, pop group TLC, classic TV shows like Mystery Science Theater, and Veronica Mars. Which is funny because they don't mention Critical Role and they beat those punks there. They were also a bunch of projects that burned through their cash and never delivered. Listen to this. Crowdfunding has largely faded from the public consciousness in recent years. This is not something we're typically privy to in the RPG space because we're always kicking in all kinds of money for these yahoos. And Kickstarter signaled to its venture capitalists that it wasn't the sort of hyper-growth startup they thought it was. Kickstarter changed its designation in 2015 to a public benefit corporation, and the next year took the unusual step of paying the startup's shareholders a dividend rather than reinvesting the money in pursuit of an initial public offering. I would have never known that. What does that mean to the whole thing, right? So then it says today, so like I didn't realize that maybe they're like, well, we do really well, but we're not hyper. I mean, in venture capitalism, it's like, hey man, I want to get some of my money back. Today, money that might have once gone to Kickstarter campaigns is flowing through blockchains into what are known as distributed autonomous organizations, or DAOs. I was trying to look into more of this before this, but I didn't have time. So last month, a group dubbed, this is interesting, a group dubbed Constitution DAO mounted a crowdfunding campaign to buy a rare copy of the U.S. Constitution. It raised $46.3 million from thousands of contributors, but failed to win the auction. The DAO offered refunds and disbanded. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm like, well, what's a DAO? And it's like technology. It's so odd. So like, hey, I can get in on this, and it, all the algorithms and all that. It was crazy. $46.3 million to buy, but it failed the auction. But it wasn't like a company. The embrace of crypto could help Kickstarter regain some relevance. A raft of startups, as well as companies over a century old, are searching for ways to decentralize their digital infrastructure, often in a bid to lower costs. Twitter's been working on an open source decentralized social media system called Blue Sky since 2019. So this is good insight. Like, okay, this kind of paints a little better of a picture, maybe. Kickstarter's open source protocol was built on the blockchain platform Celo, which counts Andreessen Horowitz, big VC firm, and Jack Dorsey. Jack, I think, has the Cash App, I think, and Square, which is now Cube, maybe. Who's also left Twitter recently as the CEO. Celo says its network is carbon negative, partly through the purchase of carbon offsets, which is a common criticism of crypto architecture, is how energy intensive it can be, like I mentioned. So some interesting take from Bloomberg. Has to name the leader of the new company, also plan to create what it calls governance lab, separate from the existing company and the new one, to provide independent governance for the protocol, which goes back to the Teal organization. I'm sorry if I bored the hell out of you guys, and this has nothing to do with RPGs, and it's a big like deviation from stuff, but it'll be interesting to see how Kickstarter changes in 2022. I don't think we're going to notice. Maybe the features will be better. Maybe it'll be a better experience from a user perspective from both sides. As a company administers and puts out a Kickstarter, collecting the money, logistics, shipping, product, rewards, getting, us involved in that process and what that looks like. I don't know. Victor says, I've backed enough Kickstarter projects that keeping track of them requires me to keep a spreadsheet. It's a bit crazy. Yeah, just imagine if it was a blockchain. Look through the block. Yeah, just go there. They even talked about collecting. Where did I see that? Did I read that? Like, it wouldn't even maybe like, that's one of the beefs. Like, I've seen Twitter, like, what is it with you people? You back our projects and then we send out surveys and you never do them. Like, we want to try to get you your project or product. Thank you. But hey, we need this done in a timely fashion. I'm like, I've been guilty. And I've gone to that person that tweeted that and say, because I get so much Kickstarter updates that are absolutely worthless to me personally, that I just file them away. I have a filter on my inbox. Kickstarter, throw it over there. Well, the problem with that is once the survey comes through, then I'm like, oh, damn, I missed it. A month. Ooh, I should have filled this out a month ago. Yike, crikey. So everybody wants the updates, but when all the updates are just like, yep, we're still working on it. Derp, 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 derp. Hey, check this out. Like, give me the update when it's done, maybe? I don't know. And it would alleviate that, right, with the blockchain, because they just have my info and they could just be like, authorized to charge you and ship to this. And, do you want add-ons now? Nope. Just do you want updates? Nope. Like, all that's stored in the data and the hash. And they go, okay, based on Sean Kelly, the backer of this, like, it's not Sean Kelly because it's a blockchain and it's, maybe Sean Kelly's associated with XYZ PDQ 123578994, whatever. Based on this person's details, send it. Don't send him any updates. This is the address. He's in America. Here's the money. Make it happen. Because I think with blockchain, it may just streamline options better, but more, I don't know. You want to fill out the survey. You want all the updates. You don't want it shipped to your house. You want it shipped over here. You are, I am in England. I am in India, blah. Then there's whatever regulations around that. Oh, and shipping. Oh, and so, I got to figure out shipping. Well, we already have that because we've already figured it out and put it into the protocol, and through our platform, we already know all that stuff. It's all peer-to-peer. We can do live real-time shipment calculations. When do you anticipate this being done? I don't know, in a month. Okay, based on our statistical analysis, you can expect shipping to be this. Sounds good. I don't know. Maybe it lowers the risk. Like right now, shipping is killing Kickstarter. Shipping, like time and money, both. Like, is there a way to nip that in the bud? Because blockchain, as it becomes more of a just kind of thing, as things are running on, right now the web's based on API calls and things of that nature. Well, with blockchain, does that open it up a little bit more? Maybe I don't have to tie to a particular vendor's website or system. I could connect to a blockchain that is all about supply and logistics and just grab all that data and understand it, crunch it, melt it down, provide it to Kickstarter companies running Kickstarters, and then also inform the end consumer. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. Let's talk about something a little more lighthearted, huh? What time is it? 10:30, 2.5 hours. Shoot, maybe I should call it a day, huh? What is new in the RPG hobby? What is going on? What's the buzz? Solo RPGs? I don't know. Maybe. Victor says, with regard to shipping, I don't think any creators will ever get away from people not updating their current shipping address. That seems a consistently nagging problem for Kickstarters. Yes, but if it's part of the blockchain, like part of you, and it asks you up front, I don't know. There's got to be a way to capture it without having this weird, hey, update your shipping info. Like that some people will say, man, I just kickstarted 5 projects. I'm having them all shipped to the same damn address. Why do I got to fill this out every single one? That should nip that in the bud. I don't know why it does it now anyway, honestly. Just put it in my profile, man. When it's done, hey, when this is done, if there are physical products, where do you want them shipped? Click, enter. Don't bother me until it's here. I don't know. Michael Holland says, Sean, have you nominated any games for most anticipated game of 2022? What would you put on that list? Oh, that's a good question. One thing I didn't do, what I wanted to do was also get like a Christmas list of stuff, which I think I'm going to be a little bit late on. But like, hey, here's some Christmas goodies I would recommend and you guys should check out. Or, let your significant others watch this and tell them to buy this stuff and give them to you. I would be interested to know, like, short list of what you would like to buy from an RPG perspective, like for the holidays. Like, what would you like to see when you unwrap something and it's under the tree or in your stocking if you celebrate that way? And that could be anything. Like, it could be a book, could be a game, could be an accessory, whatever. Something you got your eye on. If it's gaming related, whatever, let me know. But 2022, Michael says, who would I nominate for the most anticipated game of 2022? Well, that is, put me on the spot, man. Put me on the spot. Oh man, I don't even know do we have a list? Maybe? Shoot, I got one for computers. That sucks. That's one thing about RPGs. I get so much stuff from computer RPGs. The Gamer, most anticipated RPGs coming in 2022. I think they're all video games. Elden Ring. Yeah, Rune Factory. These are all video games. I need to know. I can't ever remember who's coming. The one thing that I know of is Blade Runner from Free League. Maybe I should just say anything by Free League 2022. I'm a fanboy. What are you going to do? Is everything that they put out I buy? No. BSer is out like for England and Ireland spins. Kickstarter, which is probably crushing it or will be crushing it. I haven't bought it. It's one of the ones I haven't bought and purchased. Blade Runner, I'm fairly interested, but I don't know if it's the be all end all. You know? I mean, I haven't played Tales from the Loop. I own it. I got Coriolis. I haven't played it. I own it. Same with Symbaroum. Like, Sean, getting in the deep end again. Like getting too many stuffs and not playing them. What is out? Tell me what's coming out there. Marvel Universe Multiverse role-playing game playtest rulebook. EN Thread has a big list and growing. Sweetness and EN World RPG 2022. That would help. Yeah, they got a most anticipated list. There it is. Look at that. 2022, right? Because I see Twilight 2000. Oh, they've got a table, an ongoing table. Holy cow. Last year's winners were Dune and Twilight 2000. Should we look at 2021? What does that look like? Looking back. The most anticipated RPGs of 2021. So looking back, did they even come out? And are they awesome? Number 10, SLA Industries. I've seen it. I haven't played it. Werewolf the Apocalypse. You guys own this? Okay, so chime in with me if you played SLA Industries or if you own it. Let me know. Sign off in the chat. I've seen it and it's piqued my curiosity. If you're not familiar with it, it's a game of urban horror set in the world of progress, a vast world of ruin and decay. Werewolf the Apocalypse. Again, I'm not a big World of Darkness guy, so so far none of these have hit my shelf yet. Bran Colonia, the spaghetti fantasy RPG, an all-Italian medieval, roguish, and picaresque setting for the 5th edition of the most famous role-playing of all time. I do not have that one. I think that's out, right? Pathfinder for Savage Worlds, do not have. That one came out, obviously, big Kickstarter. That was announced in 2020. Wow. Ooh. I think somebody's running that for BSer Con. BSer Con. GamingandBS.com/BSer Con. If you're interested in going, that's in January 28th to the 30th. Next one, Rivers of London. Chaosium. Based on novels by Ben Aronovich, which I have not. Aaron Vanovich, yeah. I have not read the novels or have that. It's a customized version of the basic role-playing system. The Rivers of London series follows an ordinary constable. All right, here we go. I own SLA. SLA, nope. Werewolf, nope. Barcelonian Pathfinder, nope. River of London, nope. Modiphius and Brand Colonians on huge discount on their website. Interesting. Pathfinder for Savage Worlds is actually pretty good. Level Up. That's the EM Publishing one. It's like, I love the guys at EM World. Ready to level your 5th edition game? Welcome to Level Up, the standalone advanced 5e backwards compatible tabletop coming in 2021. Crunchier, more flexible version of 5e rule set, which you know and love. If you love 5e but would like a little more depth to the rule set, I am not their target audience. You got it, Ty. Oh, okay. So let me know how it is. Pendragon. I do not have that one. Though that one, it does intrigue me. But I start getting into the what fantasy games do I really need? I mean, do I need D&D and OSE and Symbaroum and Forbidden Lands and The One Ring and Pendragon and like on and on and on and Warlock, which I probably bought. I did buy. Like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The One Ring. Just making it in, right? Just making it in with him right in 2021. Like some people are just starting to get these. The most anticipated game of 2022 is the one that was supposed to arrive in 2021. That would be my answer. Fortunately, I'm not. Am I waiting on any? I probably am. Dune. Twilight 2000. That would have been mine from last year for sure. And I got it. That's another one I haven't played yet. I haven't got another table. All right. So 2022. Well, they're still nominating. So this thing isn't even done, right? So we got Blade Runner from Free League. I mentioned that. Stone Top by Penny Lantern. Not familiar. Homeworld 2D20 from Modiphius. Avatar Legends. It's got to be one up there, right? That's got to be in the top 3 or 4. Man, that Kickstarter. Shit. Marvel Multiverse, somebody mentioned. There you go. Victor, I feel you on that list of fantasy RPGs, Sean. There's so many out there, man, for sure. Ty says, I only got Cortex Prime's Dragon Prince. Yeah. So Marvel, I'm not a Marvel guy, man. I'm not a Supers. I think I own one Supers game, and guess what that is? Take a guess. Guess, you'll never guess. I'll give you a few minutes. Somebody will say it. They'll be like, oh, it's got to be some weird, goofy, obscure one. Who knows? Avatar Legends got delayed several months. Paper and cardboard issues for such a big project. Yeah. I can't imagine. DCC Dying Earth. Forgot about that one. It's due in September. Yeah, it's not Champions, Ty. It's not Champions. Have you played Savage Worlds Necessary Evil? Hey, what's up, Murder Hobo? See, snuck in. Thanks. Gabe, Masks. I have not. It's not Masks. I've not played Savage Worlds Necessary Evil. I had a friend of mine run it for the doc group that I'm in, but I wasn't. I think he did, and I wasn't there. Like I don't know if I had a class for a semester. Nope, was not Mutants and Masterminds. Older. Let's just say that. Older. Now if somebody's going to put it out there. Mothership. I got to say Mothership. Right? Even though I own it. I got to say Mothership, probably. Mothership. I think it's on my Kickstarter list. Who else did I get on my Kickstarter list? Starforged. Got that one on there. Put in a late pledge. It might be. So it's probably the most anticipated are the ones I actually backed and are waiting. Phaser Rip. I don't know if it's older. It's right around TSR. There it is. Wayne Peacock got it. V&V. Wayne got it. Villains and Vigilantes. And the only reason I got it was a buddy of mine's. I don't know how it ended up in my hands. I don't know. But yeah, and I've never played it. I don't even think I've opened the box. I don't know if everything's in it. But, so Supers, Marvel, it could be the best role-playing game in the world. I probably have no ambition in playing it. Iron Mask is really good. I've listened to the interview with Steve Kenson on Third Floor Wars. Go check out Craig's Third Floor Wars podcast. Does a great interview. Craig does. See, Stone Top Tales of Zandia. Is it Zadia? Zadia? Shadia? Why do they spell company? It's like what? I can't pronounce it. All right, Victor. Give it. I'll play in it. I'll play it, Victor. If you run Villains and Vigilantes, I'll try to play in it. I did play. So I haven't been a person who has not played Supers. Okay, I think my first Gen Con I ever played a game in, because I used to go to Gen Con and hang out, kind of like what Brett does with all his conventions. That's a jab. Hey, Brett, love you, buddy. He doesn't always just hang out, but the first time I think I ever played a game at a Gen Con convention was Champions. It was all right. And then I did play Phaser Rip, because that was the Kistastrophe event that Michael ran at Gary Con. So he gets dressed up as, if you haven't seen pictures of that in the past, or you hadn't known me back then, Michael was a creative individual who he showed up when he'd run those events. He had you'd play a Kiss character, and he based it in Phaser Rip. He used the Phaser Rip system. And it was kind of like Phantom at the park, where you Kiss had these, each Kiss character had a special power, and an evil bad guy crashed one of the concerts. You had to deal with it. And he dressed up as Gene Simmons whenever he ran it. He had two different costumes. He dressed up as concert tour Gene Simmons and street Gene Simmons. And the difference was, one had the armor and the high boots, and the other one has a jean jacket, the Kiss on the back with a big patch, but full makeup, wig. He's also the one that did Murder on the Love Boat, where each person got a lay, and they played the crew of the Love Boat. And of course that turned into, it was based on D20 Call Cthulhu, because Michael was a member of the Dead Games Society, which they run games that are no longer in publication. So D20 Call Cthulhu. He was also the one that ran Nightmare on Sesame Street and each person had a hand puppet of the character they were playing. And the character sheets looked like they were done in crayon. It was really cool. He's super, super awesome. I mean, an experience playing one of his games. Anyways. All right. Look at Blade Runner, Avatar Legends, Rivers of London, Cowboy Bebop. Is they coming out with one? Root. Let's see. Blade Runner, Marvel, Homeworld, Marvel, Blade Runner. Yeah, I would say nobody's mentioned Mothership. That's hilarious. Oh, there it is. Mothership does not yet have a link associated with it, thus has not been submitted for consideration. Confused by the rules list, blah, blah, blah. Pendragon, Rivers of London. Yeah, I don't know. I would probably say Blade Runner and Mothership for me. But there's always going to be some small press one that I'm not aware of that'll pop up. Orbital Blues, a space western RPG. Vaesen's Mythic Britain and Ireland, I mentioned earlier. I don't have Vaesen. I've heard good things about it. A lot of BSers are big fans of it. ICRPG. I'm waiting for mine to show up. I ordered it from Modifius. from Runehammer. That maybe one for 2022. Marvel game. Orbital Blue by Soul Muppet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to see a ongoing theme. I don't know. Are we going to know ahead of time? 10 good ones coming out. Transformers. That's another one that's hasn't been listed till here. Transformers RPG. Pugmire author's doing that one. Eddie Webb, he's involved in that one. You know, here's how it's kind of a weird. I don't know Eddie Webb. I know of Eddie Webb, and I don't know if I've ever seen or met him. The reason I say that is because I know that gentleman here that works for OBS is pretty, you know, he loves Pugmire, and I think he knows Eddie. And they always get at Game Con try to bring me into a Pugmire game. I digress. But I formed a podcast group here in Madison. And one of the guys in the podcast group is a big Transformers nut. Like, he's on a podcast with like 3 other buddies of his, and they do a podcast on Transformers. The name escapes me, but you could probably find it out there. And Eddie's on the Transformers RPG. I'm like, hey man, the guy I know here in Madison, you should interview Eddie when he can divulge information and talk about the Transformers RPG. And he's like, I'm on it. And I think they connected and put one out. So, which is cool. Like, yay, made a love connection. Okay, that's maybe exaggerating. Twilight 2000 4th edition for 2022, under the theory that it won't get to stores and then to me until 2022, and that is what I'm most looking for. That was posted yesterday? What? No, you can't nominate that, dude. It's out. Torchbearer 2. I had Torchbearer, got rid of it. I don't know why. I think Torchbearer 2 I got rid of just because I was like, fantasy. Like, I need another fantasy one. And I just, like, it's got to go. Like, if I haven't touched it since I bought it, it's got to go. Root. Cyborg. I forgot about Cyborg. My Stockholm Cartel. Cyborg. I got in on that one. That's those are starting to become my top 4 because they're the ones I am waiting for currently. So Cyborg, Mothership, Starforged. It's the last one. Blade Runner. Also, I'm not in on Blade Runner yet, but the Cyborg, yeah. I'm also waiting for Into the Odd. Does that count? ICRPG hard copy. You should talk to Brandon from ICRPG. He has years experience with a lot of games for gaming and BS. So here's the deal with talking to people. I don't like how we do interviews. Couple things. I think I've mentioned this before. Here's my take on interviewing people and putting them on podcasts. 1, I really want to have decent sound quality. I cannot stand shitty sound quality. And we've been guilty of it. Like Rob Whelan, he's in Milwaukee. He's a friend of ours, but his audio sucked. Sorry, Rob. Call it like I hear it. I also don't like the way we interview. I say we. I don't say much on interviews. It's hard to interview with 2 people. Atomic Array. Any nominated, any winning, I think, right? Any winning any? Atomic Array with Roan Barton and Ed Healy was good. And they did a pretty good job of tag teaming in an interview, which is really difficult. That's why when interviews are done, it's usually by a single person. But I just, maybe on here, I decide to interview. We'll see. That's just my take. far as I'm concerned right now, if you're not listening to Craig Shipman and Third Floor Wars for interviews specifically, you're missing out. He's great. He really is. I give Craig a lot of credit. He's probably the best RPG interview podcast show. And I only say that because it's probably the only one I listen to. So I'm a little biased, and I know Craig. And if there's another one out there, let me know. It's good. He's interviewed Sage LaTorra from Dungeon World. He's interviewed Dennis Detwiller, who is, Dennis is, if you've ever followed him on Twitter, man, he has got things to say. He's interviewed, those are a couple of the ones, Steve Kenson I mentioned, and Scott Tynes for Delta Green, Vincent and Miguel Baker for Apocalypse World. Definitely check his show out. I'll say this. What I want to do on How to RPG will involve some type of interviewing. What I want to do, and I could kind of divulge this, because I probably look to you guys to maybe help, in some capacity or another. And some have expressed direct, hey, I'd like to maybe, give you a hand with it in some way, shape, or form other than just consuming it. So one of the things that I think is, and I've mentioned this in other streams and other shows and in passing, one of the things I think is missing, and I explained this, I had a conversation with Eric Frankhouse from Eric Frankhouse Presents. He's doing, I think he's streaming on Twitch like 4 nights a week. He's an Iron GM winner. He's down the street from us in Milwaukee. And I talked to others as well. Harrigan being one of them, Gabe, he's in the chat. And one of the things, what's his name? Ben Milton, Questing Beast, here on YouTube. He's got a good following. Ben does a good job of reviewing OSR-based games. He's got Knave, it's his own. And what he did recently was a live play, and on YouTube, you can go and see it. I don't know what the link is, but it's just a video camera pointing at the table, and it looks like a normal in-person game at the table. You don't see anybody's faces. It's just the table, and you could see some people's hands and maybe their dice, the drink, and all this. And Ben is running a game. You could hear the audio, and he's running OSE, and I think it's one of the ones, the author of OSE, Old School Essentials, escapes me. What's his Drongheim? What's his the default setting? Can't remember what it's called. You guys will put it in the chat. Shit. But he's running an adventure. And what he's doing during that, like, he's recorded the live play. It's probably like 2 hours long, at least 2 hours long, maybe 3, 4, I don't know. It's long, 2 hours for a YouTube video. And he puts in commentary in text to say, there's an individual that says, hey, I'm the magic user. I want to know about this. Do you think I would do that? Because I researched this, this, and this. And Ben would say, yes, as a matter of fact, you would know this, and conveys the information. And then in the text below, down here, like on the screen, it would say, hey, because they're a magic user, they would know this background. And so no role needed. That's the beauty of some of these older school games. So there is commentary, but it's in text. So you have to read it. And I think, great, that's awesome. And the feedback that he got in the comments were really interesting. It was, this is great. There's a couple things going on. One, I could see OSE being run and what that's all about. It's an actual play. Great. And there's insight commentary on some of the things that's occurring and why they're occurring. And we have Game Master podcasts that are out there. This is kind of strange because it's like nothing like this is really prevalent out there. I wasn't a big fan of how Ben executed what he did. That's not to say that it isn't good. It's just my personal preference. And you could look at it and say, hey, does it work? I don't know. But the feedback seemed relatively positive. People were like, oh, and people that don't like actual plays, they're not going to tune into it anyway. But again, in this hobby, we have the Game Master. It's a craft. We're trying to hone in on it. We provide a lot of advice. There's lots of advice out there. There's, I got 5 books on Audible and in my, PDFs that are about game master, improv game mastering, keys to game mastering. Not only do I have a book about game mastering, it's a compilation and it's edited. And so there's 10 people in that book talking about game mastering. And there's, you want to know about Game Master? Just, I don't know, put it out on Twitter and say, I don't know how to, give me how to Game Master. And people just throw stuff at you. Podcasts, blah. All right. Then we have the books. And then we have podcasts. And then we have actual plays. Now, the books and the podcasts, kind of similar, right? Hey, this is what I think. A book might just be like an entry, could be an entire book. Podcasts could go on forever and maybe touch on game mastering 75% of the time or 50% of the time. And then we'll talk about a game and maybe it's, so it's not always game mastering, but a majority of it is. Specifically like gaming and BS, this, whatever. But there's still a gap. Because if you are new to game mastering, and even if you're not new and you want to hone your craft, and you're open to like, I don't know, I'm just going to listen and I'll get tidbits. Oh, you know what? That sounds like I could do that and think of that consciously. It might make my game better somehow. And you could do that from listening to APs and how a game master just does it. Maybe their style, you just take notes like, oh, I'm watching Critical Role and I like how Matt Mercer does that. That was interesting. I'm going to try to do more of that. Maybe, whether it's voice acting or something else, right? You listen to Gaming and BS and you're like, oh, Brett and Sean talk about this or that. And it's more commentary and it's back and forth. And you go, oh, that gives me something to think about. Maybe I'll implement that. Or no, that's dumb. I'm not going to do this. There's Harrigan. Milran, Winter's Daughter. Yes, thank you. It was Dolheim. Dollenheim? Dolheim. Dolengard? Oh, shit, I don't know. Anyways. And Will Wheaton's Tabletop. Exactly, Ty. Yes. Board gaming, right? Although he had like a couple. He had Titan's Grave. I don't know Titan's Grave if it went into the details that I'm about to put out there. But so say, for example, there's an actual play that somebody runs, and it's already done. So I take them as a game master, and I bring them on to How to RPG. It wouldn't be live. We'd sit down and kind of hash this out. And it would be an interview with the game master, touching on the game and how they specifically ran it, and going through it like a director's commentary version. Right. So you get the DVD, you get the director and the actors to sit in a room and they start playing the DVD and then they pause it or they talk over it as it's still being played and they make jokes at it. Or, oh, I remember this scene. This is what happened. And this, I remember, and that thing fell from the floor. I didn't even know it. Scared the hell out of me, blah, blah, blah. So that's what I am going to try to pull off on this channel to some degree, amongst other things like this live stream and maybe just talking about games that come up. But it would be, so you would get some actual play. You would get some game master insights, because I think when we talk about what I was alluding to before, and I didn't really complete my thought about RPG podcasts, reading books on game mastering, blah, 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 we don't really understand why a game master does what they do. Right? What decision they chose to go with? Why did you decide to have them make a skill roll specifically at that point? Or what was going through your head when, you're running, like, okay, I know you're running this published module. The players don't want to follow. It's obvious at this point, or there's a record scratch that they want to go off in this direction. How did you handle that? And why did you choose the way you did? Now, the trick is to try to condense that into a nice 15-minute format, which is ideal for YouTube. Though I might be hard pressed to do that, or creative editing. But I think that might have some wheels. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe I put it out there and nobody cares and it provides absolutely no value. I'll take the risk. We'll see. Because I don't think anybody's doing it like that. Ben's, he's trying. But, I don't know. Thoughts? Let me know down below in the comments. And so ideally, and it doesn't have to be a streamer. It doesn't have to be somebody who puts out their stuff on YouTube or Twitch. It could literally just be any game master. It could be a community member. It could be you. But I would have to have a recording of it, right? And I'd have to hey, is it all right if I use the recording and bits and pieces of it? Yeah, sure, Sean. And frankly, one of the things I might have to do on this channel is, hey, here's how you record an RPG session very easily and straightforward. So that, right, that would help me. Helping you help me, right? I'm going to record my RPG session. My players are all down for it. I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't want to set up Twitch. But, hey, Sean, I did this. Would you be interested in having me on your show? Sure, absolutely. Let's talk about this. What'd you do? What'd you run? So there's a component of, so when you talk about GM styles, you also talk about the game that they're running. I wouldn't even be opposed to having one GM on more than once for different games, because how they may run Old School Essentials may be completely different than how they run Delta Green. Into the Odd. Whatever. Insert game title here, right? They're different games. The game itself might have a different mechanic and rule set and system on how game masters are running it. And I say this because it's more traditional games, right, with the GM. So people can view these. They get a little snickety snack, a little taste of how that game, what that game is. They can get a synopsis of it, even if it's not watching the entire actual play. Maybe I break it down into segments. There's going to be some pretty standard questions. But not so canned where it's like, maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's question 1, hey, I always ask this question. Sure, So when a new game master or somebody that's going to run, hey, I'm going to run Tales from the Loop. Where do I go for a resource on running specifically Tales from the Loop? And there's all kinds, right? Like people are going to say, go on to Reddit. Like, you're going to run a module or a scenario or a published adventure or Masks of Nyarlathotep. Boy, this is a lot of the things you're going to need to know. That might be too much of a beast, but there's always certain kind of pitfalls and things that people want to know. And some of us learn through that. Like I learned through Forbidden Lands. I got a video I haven't put up like, hey, if you're going to run Forbidden Lands, this is some of the things you're going to want to tackle and understand. Because if you don't, you might there may be a risk of it falling apart. Doesn't mean my advice is good for your group, but it's something to be aware of in case you do start sliding down that path. You could be like, oh, this is what Sean was talking about. Shit, I got to back up out of this. So we'll see. I am interested in feedback, although I don't know if I could, once you say, hey, I'm open to feedback, everything comes pouring in, you're kind of like, that's not kind of maybe, sort of, no way, man. But nonetheless, I will consider all of it. Victor says, your description sounds like the old Sons of Kairos. I remember those guys, Judd and the boys. It's been a long time since I've heard them. They talked about what they were going to play in the first half and then finished up with talk about how it played out after playing. Yeah. Yeah. But it would be like specific parts of the actual play. Like I want, and it may be like, wow, to produce one episode is a major effort because I'd have to watch an actual play for hours. And maybe it's not a problem. Maybe I've been in one. We'll see. Maybe I've run one. I'll be my very own first interview. Anyways, that's what I was thinking. Dalmanwood. Thank you, Harrigan. Dalmanwood. I think it's called Dolmenwood. That's what the pronunciation for the setting for the old school essentials default. But so yeah, there you go. There was RPG School. I don't know if they're still around. That was a podcast. That's where Satine Phoenix started. I think. I mean, she did comics. She's got her own the Praetorians comic. But she was part of sex, porn, like D&D by porn stars. But she was on a podcast with Chad Parrish, and Chad is from Dead Game Society. And those two had never met before, but they were on the same show together, co-hosts. And they would invite the creator of the RPG, and then that creator would run them through a very, very, very short encounter, typically. So they would come on, talk about the game, some of the mechanics, and they go, okay, let's make this happen. And then they would play it. Not bad. And then Satine, it's like, I don't know if it's still going, but I don't know if Chad's involved with it anymore. Could still be going with different hosts. I thought TSR, the same, Jason Elliott was kind of behind that a little bit. But that, Satine's doing other things now. She has moved on. But part of that's not a bad, like, that's okay. I could see where that might be interesting. So yeah, that's still baking it. Because I think that the length of time is going to be tricky. YouTube loves the 15-minute mark, but long form, we'll see. We do an hour show. I'm here for, I'm going on 3 hours now. This is just live. So we'll see. I think it can have some wheels. So the first ones are going to be a little bumpy for sure. Rich Rogers has done little snippets play session on +1 Forward. Yeah, that's true. I haven't listened to Rich for a while. And they have done that. They had one with like very short snippets, but I don't think it was like commentary. I think it was like literally, weren't they running a podcast where they were running a game and it was like a literally 5-minute episode? Like it was crazy. I don't know if that's still going. I don't think it's +1 Forward. I think it was maybe an offshoot of that. Anyways. Oh, so that's what I'm scratching my head about. Format, overlay, having the guests come on, what questions to ask. And it has to deal with, it's going to be around like, okay, are you like, is this your game? Is this the first time you've run it? No, because it has to all be relative to informing the viewer of setting the scene, right? If the game master is a veteran at running Delta Green, that has to be considered when you're asking them questions and viewing how they game master a game, right? If Gabe is 2D20 Conan guy and he's run tons of one-shots and maybe some campaigns, he's got a specific like a level of credibility to understand on why and how he runs his games than Sean picking it up last week and running it for the first time on an actual play and going, this is my first time. So yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about that. We'll see. I'm excited about it. I think it's got some wheels. Little bit of everything, maybe, kind of. And it stems from some of the GM stories out there, man. The horror stories. We brought up one last week. You know, the guy who was asked if he wanted to play and said he couldn't play in every session. And the game master was like, that's fine. Maybe it was a lunch hour game with coworkers. Guy gets called by the GM and says, hey, how attached were you to your character? Because we had this other guy play him and he got killed. Like, just what? Who does that? Like, there's just some things that happen on game masters that are like, what? These people exist. We must prevent them from existing. And the only way to do that is to ensure that new GMs, game masters that have been doing things in a particular way that is not positive, we need to fix that. Feel compelled to fix that. No. Don't do that. Anyways, so that's the deal. Good talk today. Sorry if I bored the living crap out of some of you regarding blockchain and Kickstarter and Wizards of the Coast, legal, heavy stuff, man. I promise next week it won't be as figure something out. If you got a topic idea, let me know. Hey, man, I want to get your take on this. Put it up on the agenda and rap about it for a while. Have people weigh in. What else? I think that's it for today, folks. If you are interested, BSer Con for Gaming and BS. It's the year of the BSer. They are holding the first online BSer Con in January 28th to the 30th. Registration submission is currently open. It's going to close January 3rd of 2021. So make sure you get your submission in. We have over 30 events currently on the list. There's been a few. It's going to grow, I'm sure. Might even have a cancellation. We'll see. And then we'll open up event sign up January 10th. So people have at least, a week to look it over, pick the games, sign up for the games, blah. And then we'll do that. Discord is going to be the platform default. If you choose to use Zoom or something else, no problem. We'll just list it in the event. Not a big deal. But if you are a GM and you're like, I never ran on a virtual con, and I've been mulling it over for last year, this would be the crowd to do it for, because a lot of us are game masters. We understand. Just let them know, like, hey, this is my first time. You're in good hands. You really are. And, there's a sideways player in your game. There'll be somebody to help you out. I guarantee it. That's what the community's like over there. So, and if you don't want a game master, you're tired of it, you want to play some games, you want to check out some new games and with new people, great opportunity. So go to gamingandbs.com/BSerCon and it'll take you to the con site. It costs $5. So whether you're going to be there an hour or the whole weekend, it's $5. We're going to take it, make sure the server's boosted as high as it can go. It is now. And then we're going to give some money to tabletop events for the platform that we're using to register all this stuff and do all the scheduling and things of that nature. What else? What other overhead did I have? Credit card fees, maybe. And then anything left over is going to go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society charity. So that's what we're going to do. It is not only open to BSers. It's open to anybody that wants to partake. So we've got a couple seminars. If you want to give a talk, one is going to be how to run a hex crawl by our own AWOL trooper. He's going to put that down. He's doing Hot Springs Island, and he's DCC guy. And then Jim is going to do the art of maps, something along those lines. So he's been doing some drawing. We have a paint room. So even if you just want to hang in the paint room, talk as you're knocking out your Reaper backlog, by all means do that. Come and go as you wish in that regard. But pretty excited about doing that. So that's all I have for this week. Go out and game. Do something. Read a RPG. Prep. And remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby. See you next week.